All right, thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions from the board? Yes, ma'am, Mayor. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, Dave.
Service proves itself and grows in the future.
Yeah, right now, during the hurricane, our docks were damaged severely. So I actually have a meeting right now, but I didn't attend the water taxing about some dock improvements, but it is some form of, transit need to get people to the island.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. And I think that's a great question, Dave. And going through it, I've obviously sit on the TDC and very active with getting that started with the county commissioners and going through that in the city of Bradenton. Our dock in the city of Bradenton sustained a little damage, but we've got it fixed. The Anna Maria Island dock lost most of the middle of its parts. Thank goodness it didn't lose the end part because it might not have been able to be replaced. So they are trying to figure ways to connect to that until the rest of the dock is replaced, but it is still running to Bradenton Beach. So that's working right now. And I know that the TDC through Elliot Falcione is working to try to up that. And it was running yesterday, a couple days before it wasn't because the weather was a little bit tough. And the new boat that will be able to run about 95% of the time because of weather will be in hopefully sometime mid to late summer is what the plan is. And
Hopefully.
sooner, but again, it's because weather is a factor. The new boat will be able to go in almost all kinds of weathers.
It's a steel vessel.
Yes. So,
Okay, great. Thanks, Mayor. Any other comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next, we will hear from Sarasota County, Bree's quarterly report. And it looks like, is it Megan? Okay, good morning, Megan. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Megan Louie, the Planning and Performance Manager with Breeze Transit, and here to give you a quarterly update since the last meeting in November. Like we start most of these presentations, I'll go over some ridership data. This is 3 fiscal years of our data, the most recent year shown in light gray. As you can see, with our hurricane season, we did experience a decline in ridership during September and October. We were down about 11,000 and 40,000 riders during those 2 months. We still see a slight decline, but the decline is decreasing. In December, we were down about 6,000 rides during that month, and we anticipate as the peak seasonal ridership comes into effect, in addition to the extension of our 77 Siesta Islander connecting Siesta to downtown, we anticipate that ridership will increase and will hit that 2 million ridership mark for the year like we have in the past couple of years. This next chart shows the exact same data, but broken down by service type. So the fixed route in light blue, the 77 Siesta Islander in purple, where you can really see that decrease and that impact from the hurricane season when we weren't able to safely access the islands and provide that transportation service, both there as well as on Lido Longboat. Next, I wanted to share some preliminary results from our marketing and benchmark survey. So over the past 4 years, we've had lots of changes to our service. We've added in the on-demand, the curb-to-curb on-demand service in several zones throughout the county. We've also changed our name from SCAT to Breeze. And so we have completed an annual benchmarking survey to measure progress towards our marketing goals, which are increasing awareness about Breeze or public transportation, improving positive perceptions of public transportation, and then improving consideration for potential passengers to use our transit services. So we're happy to see that in 2024, 91% of respondents recognized our name, Breeze, which is up from the prior year at 75%. There was also an increase in recognition of the services, the types of public transit that we offer. For a while, the Breeze Siesta Key, the trolley was marketed differently than SCAT. It didn't have the same name and branding. Now that all of our vehicles have a more cohesive look and a cohesive name, we have noticed on the responses that people are recognizing that we do offer fixed route, we do offer trolley, and we do offer on-demand service. So that's good for them to see the breadth of services that we offer. And then we had a very slight increase, but still an increase in the percentage of respondents who had ridden Breeze more than once in the past year, up to 54% versus the 52 in 2023. And then this one, I apologize, the numbers are a little bit hard to see, but we are happy to report that the positive perception of public transportation, which is something that many communities struggle with, has increased. In 2022, we were at 25% positive perception. 2023, 47%, and 2024, we're up to 51%. So we're happy to see that number increasing, and the negative number has decreased the last 2 years, pretty much similar, but it hasn't grown. So that's also great to see. And then lastly, I wanted to just give you an update on the Transit Development Plan, or the TDP. We've spent about the last 9 months working on the major update to our TDP. It's a 10-year plan horizon that identifies the public transit needs and strategic actions necessary to meet those needs. So we've spent time working with the public, our jurisdictional stakeholders, and the MPO to gather feedback and review the components of the plan. So once the plan is complete, we will take it to our governing board, the Sarasota County Transportation Authority, for their review and approval. And then per the new rules of 1473, we will also be bringing that back to one of your future MPO board meetings to go over the TDP and then submit the mission to FDOT. That is my update for today. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Megan. Great presentation. Do we have any? Yes, Commissioner Bearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is Breeze on Demand. I know I've heard a lot of great things about this particular service. That being said, so we're looking at Longboat Key. You're also looking at utilizing that service from Siesta to downtown Sarasota. How many people do you expect to be utilizing the specific service of Breeze?
I'm not sure if I exactly understand the question.
Okay, so how many people utilize Breeze on a yearly basis?
Oh, our overall annual ridership for the past 2 years was 2.1 million in 2022 and 2.3 in 2023.
So 2.1 million people use the service, Breeze service.
That's all of the services we offer. Fixed
Okay,
route, on demand, and
Got
our
you.
paratransit.
Well, I'm talking about specifically Breeze.
So all of our services are Breeze. We have Breeze fixed route, which is the big bus.
Okay.
Breeze on demand, the small vehicles
That's-
that are specific to zones. and then Breeze Plus, our TD and ADA service.
Okay, so let me narrow this
Okay.
down. On demand.
Yes.
The on demand.
So I don't have the numbers with me, but in that chart that breaks it down by service type, there's a bar specifically for the on-demand service there. And I think I don't have my glasses on either. So I think it's the green bar. That gives you a sense of how much ridership. It continues to grow.
So 150,000 a year?
If that's, I can't.
Am I reading
that's
that
what
right?
it looks like.
Free. On demand is what I want. I want the numbers for on demand.
Okay, we can certainly bring them back. We've brought them in the past. We
Okay.
have multiple zones. Some zones are more successful than others. Right now, we have 3 zones, the downtown Lido Longboat zone. We have our Northport zone and our Venice Englewood zone. We used to have a Siesta zone, but the ridership was not as successful as our fixed route. So we have since expanded our 77 Siesta Islander to connect the island to downtown Sarasota. And we also have a seasonal route that we run.
Okay, and on demand is a paid service?
Yes. it
Okay,
is.
and what you saying the average is like $3 per ride?
We have a fare of $2 per trip, but we also have a transportation disadvantaged fare of $1.50, and transportation disadvantage is a qualifying price where you must first demonstrate that you have no other means of transportation, and then you must meet one of the following 3 categories:
Okay,
disability, age requirements, or income levels
okay, so the $2 trip, anybody can use that
within the zone, correct?
within the zone?
Correct.
Okay. And how much is the county spending on that particular line item?
The total budget I don't have in front of me. I do know that the on-demand zones replaced fixed route zones or fixed route service that was not as efficient for cost per passenger. And I know certainly in our southern zones, the cost per passenger, we are serving more people at a lower cost per passenger than we were with our fixed route service in those 2 zones.
Okay, the only reason why I'm asking this, board, is because I'm trying to figure out a way to reduce traffic, essentially. And what I want to do is if there's a way for us to look at different avenues as far as utilizing a similar service such as Breeze on-demand services. I know people could take Uber or, Lyft or whatever that might be, but to incentivize them to utilize the Breeze service other than getting in their own car and driving from point A to point B, I think this is something that we should look at. Because like I said, it is taking a long time to get from point A to point B in Sarasota County as well as Manatee County. And these are just some ideas that I want to look at as far as what we can do to minimize the amount of cars that are on the road for future reference. If we can incentivize people to utilize a service such as Breeze, right? Whether that be a discounted price or whatever it might be, instead of getting in their own vehicle, I think there might be a possibility to reduce the amount of vehicles that are on the road. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, good morning. Good to see you. Did you check in with Nanette? You were late. You were tardy.
I did sign the list. Yes, I did. I apologize for being tardy.
Yeah.
When
we're
it's an
glad you're here.
accident on 75
I
and
saw.
you're coming from East Northport, you can't get here
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
So, but I made
Your excuse is noted. Yes, acceptable. Yeah.
it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Another question regarding Breeze on Demand. Is there a tipping point of utilization where, at least in Northport, I don't know if other zones are interested, but is there a utilization tipping point where we might add fixed routes?
So as I'm sure you're aware, on-demand service is kind of new. So there's
Yes.
not a lot of research for us to turn to and say, okay, this is what worked in other areas. And so if we just follow this method or this tipping point number, we can make that change. We are always looking at, what is that tipping point when will we hit that mark where fixed route becomes the better use of funds and can still move people. Right now, we haven't reached that point, we feel, but we are looking at when that tipping point might be, but as far as an exact number, I don't have an exact number of where that is.
Right, part of my interest is there's a significant amount of commercial development going on in the Toledo Blade area. We're also opening and building a number of affordable housing developments that are along that same corridor. So it's probably less what's the tipping point for on demand, but the tipping point for being able to utilize a fixed route. So are there any numbers in terms of, I know one of the reasons we went to on demand was underutilization of our
Yeah,
fixed routes.
Yeah.
So when might we start considering a fixed route?
Well, we regularly have conversations with the city of Northport and
Yeah.
the planning director to talk about those kind of concerns and issues and get a
Right.
better sense, a grasp around the timing and when the people are going to be there. We don't have a lot of research yet to say,
Okay,
you know, this is it, but it is an ongoing conversation and something that we're definitely looking at.
okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think it begs to speak that you guys are the second fastest growing municipal area in the country,
They
right?
have been for a few years.
Yeah, I would think that we would know. And
1% a year.
yeah, that's big volume. So we should probably look into that with a deeper dive. Thank you, ma'am. Good to see you this morning. Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I believe a lot of these questions are great questions, and Commissioner Beard and I have talked a little bit about some of the transportation and really in downtown Bradenton when you go through it. One of the things that we've done through our CRA is we've got the freebie, which is working, which none of those numbers probably play into this right now, but it is very successful because it's something done through the city, not with the MCAT. So that's something we probably should look at and see how we tie it together. And hopefully within the next couple of months or sooner, we'll actually be launching it with Palmetto CRA so they can tie in the bridge, where right now we're a food desert in the city of Bradenton, have no grocery stores. Palmetto has several, so they'll be able to go back and forth on that with a collaboration. So that is something that we're doing to take cars off the road with the freebie, the way it's working. So our CRA has done a great job. But one of the things that I think when Commissioner Ahern Cock asked the question about cost and going through things, you really look at it, when you're talking about we're charging $2 and it's $30.60, how sustainable is that long term? You know, because again, we're subsidizing transportation as it is with that. And is that something that if you go outside of it, is that sustainable long term? So I think that's important for this board to really drill down on and say, if we can get this almost to cover cost, can you? Or is that bus route? Because we know you guys added a bus route, changed a bus route to do on demand at Breeze, and you're getting a lot more activity at it. But like you said, I have never heard a cost of what that's changed compared to the bus moving. So I think, you know, there's great questions. But again, how sustainable are these long term if you're losing $28+ a trip? And then all of a sudden, if the trips grow, maybe it would come down a little bit, but you know, I don't think we can afford to continue to lose $28+ a trip. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Koch?
Yeah, so along those points, you had mentioned in your comments to the commissioner earlier that the Breeze numbers were, the on-demand for Breeze is less expensive than the routes that we had before. Whereas for MCAT, we're not so sure about that. So I was curious, you know, about those exact numbers per trip and the sustainability of it. Obviously, if that's a more sustainable way to go than the way we were before, this is better, clearly. But the counting, so that's, you know, everything, all the details are really important. And the MCAT counter, they switched to these, it's my understanding they switched to these new counters and the ridership went up by 40%. And so that's very interesting. Does Breeze have those same counters? And just thought about that.
Yeah, so we have a couple ways we can count passengers, just like MCAT. They're the fare box and then the automatic passenger counters or APCs. So the APCs are, you have to go through a certification process to be approved by the National Transit Database or NTD. We have gone through that and we are looking at our data. Right now, our APC data and fare box data is not significantly different from one another. We do have similar, but it's a different technology system, just like a different
So
brand.
you feel like the count is accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so that's important. And along the lines that Mayor Brown was talking about, we in the city of Sarasota also have our trolley, which I do believe the county is looking into working with the city to take that over. So we also have a free trolley that goes from downtown Sarasota out to the end of Lido Key and back. And that could, I was interested in also accurate counts on the trolley and how the future of how that's going to be incorporated into Breeze as well. So thank you. Any information you would have would be great along the lines of per ridership, you know, what those trips cost for on demand.
Yeah.
And the future of the trolley as well.
Okay, yeah, that's something we've brought to, when we had the Public Transportation Task Force, we brought data on our cost per passenger for each of the zones, but it sounds like that would be something that would be helpful to bring back again, so we can certainly do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard a few people mention about getting people out of their cars, and with all this on demand, is there a way that that's actually lessening cars on the road? Because it just seems like you're exchanging someone's personal car with a freebie or whatever. It seems like we should be kind of looking at more of a trolley or something like that if we're trying to reduce traffic. Unless I'm missing something and I do think people love the convenience of on demand. They go where they want, they get their direct route when they want it. But in terms of reducing traffic, are we?
So as you observed, I mean, the larger the vehicle, the more people you can get in there, the less amount of space it takes up on the road. The on-demand service is a ride share service, so it does pick up multiple passengers at a time. So it's not a one-for-one exchange. So there likely is some reduction in the number of vehicles, but it's often done in like a minivan type size vehicle. So it's not going to get as many people as a trolley or a fixed route bus, but it is getting more than a single occupant vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from? Yes, Commissioner Beard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Vice Chair's comments in regards to, you know, looking at these on-demand services, seeing the cost of it. Obviously, I don't want anything to be free when it comes to on-demand services. Buses, most people don't have vehicles. That's why they take the bus a lot of times for the majority of those people that go on the bus. I'm more looking at coming up with something more creative. Maybe we could look at the numbers in regards to maybe a monthly fee and you get a specific number of rides, right? And also possibly looking at creating a specific, I know this might be a little bit more challenging, but maybe creating an HOV lane or some sort of lane for buses and on-demand services. That way we can get people faster from point A to point B. And then incentivize them on utilizing on-demand services, you know, which I think would be, people would definitely probably take advantage of, you know, especially getting to work, you know, in the mornings when traffic is backed up all over the county, Sarasota County as well. But I just want us to be more creative as far as looking into other options on how we can get people to be able to move faster from point A to point B. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no further questions or comments at this time. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have agenda item number 5, and we will be moving on to FDOT's transportation report. And this morning we have Wayne Gaithis. Good morning, Wayne. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Here, or just quick items off bar for update is it's that time of year again, our session about to come into play. During this time, there's awful lot of conversation that goes on about what's commonly known as earmarks. Certainly would not want to sit down and tell the local municipalities how to conduct business, but there are issues or there are some consequences that come with earmarks. Generally speaking, over the past couple of years, we have a trend with funding coming out of the Transportation Trust Fund. That is a finite amount of money that's available on an annual basis. If earmarks do come through from local communities, they generally do not come with additional funds. So you are basically reallocating funds off of your priority lists to accommodate these projects. I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. If they do come from the general funds, which had been so in years past, that's new funding that is injected into the Transportation Trust Fund or new funding that accommodates those projects. Last year, I believe the year before, there was a decision that was made at the legislative level that transportation trust funds would be utilized for projects that were coming in as earmark requests for transportation. We're also working very closely with the MPO on contingency funding. So the SU funding that's available is in place. That's federal funding, and it is used to pay for projects. They identify these projects through the list of priority projects and work closely with us to get them programmed into our work program for a 5-year window. We've been very successful in getting those funding spent down. It is our intent to spend down those funding as quickly as possible within the given 5-year window to ensure that we have the maximum number of projects while still holding a roughly 10% contingency plan in place. So in case costs fluctuate, they go up, we have an ability to accommodate those projects and continue to move forward. We'll continue to work closely with your MPOs to ensure that we have our SU box funds that are put in place associated to projects as quickly as we can. That also leads me to my last topic. During this time of year, we're working on getting projects pulled together. Costs have gone up. They continue to go up. Resources continue to go up for those costs. We're looking obviously for opportunities where we can to partner with the local communities and ensuring that you have projects that you want to have in specific years that we are also working on as well. This is another way that we work closely with the MPO. If you've got these projects identified in the list of priority projects, it does open up opportunities for a lot of discussion that's going on. Been very successful over the past, this year specifically, but over the past several years in accommodating SU funds, local funds, and state funds, and ensuring that projects are able to move forward. And with that, if Pam's got a few more items, I don't know if there's any questions from me.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any questions for Wayne this morning? No, sir, we have none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Barr. I'm the community liaison for Sarasota Manatee MPO. At this time, we are in the middle of the 2024 joint certification we're in progress with that. So we are working with the staff at the MPO. Our draft should be available by mid-February. And as we will review that with the MPO, the completed certification packet will be sent to central office by the 1st of June. So at this point in time, we don't have the final results yet, but in previous years, you have always scored low, which is a good thing. That means that they are doing everything correctly. So I'm hoping and looking forward to that being the same this year.
We scored low on their risk scale.
Oh, thank you
Low
for
on the
the
risk scale.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, yeah.
So
Is that it? Is that it?
that is all I have
Okay.
at this point in time.
All right, very
Thank
good. Do
you.
we have any questions from the board? I had a quick question, and maybe this might be, Dave, in your wheelhouse. I read a real interesting article last week about infrastructure and where this country might be going at the federal level. We had some changes and things might be moving. So I'm just curious if you guys had conversations, acquired any data, are you hearing anything that we might have some real impetus and some real push from the federal level coming down through transportation and infrastructure projects?
One of the infrastructure things is, if I'm correct, Wayne, is the racetrack and the EV, the electric, for the electric vehicles that they're starting to push down through.
Well,
That might be.
that's more of a local, but at the federal level, I think some of what you're referring to, the Florida Department of Transportation has taken a position. We will be submitting our comments to the federal government regarding discretionary funds. We have had past several years, it's been difficult in receiving funds for some certain projects, and we are pursuing the federal government to fall back toward more of a formula-based method for providing funding for projects or for specific infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. That would basically move the funding down to the states so that it can be distributed towards specific categories of projects that would need to be done. That's the way it was done prior years. With the last administration, they came up with another plan of discretionary funds, basically sending in applications for that. Florida did not bode well in some of those categories. And it's our understanding that with the new administration, we'll be transitioning back to a more formula-based method of distribution of funds. In that case, if those funds are not used, they're reallocated and then redistributed out toward projects as identified.
Okay, great. So what I heard is that money's coming to Manasota County.
Yes,
That's what I
sir.
heard. Okay, very good. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Wayne. Any further questions? Commissioner Mass, yes.
Thank you. I want to touch base a little further. Joe and I must have been the SAID article. My understanding is that not only was the previous administration showing a very challenging process in order to navigate, but based on whatever the relationship was on the specific governor, significantly impacted that scoring, so to speak. What I am hopefully here is that there is either some very aggressive conversations or some lobbying going on that would strongly re-emphasize the need for that very equitable scoring process in order so that we would be in a much more favorable light. Because my understanding is that if you look at strictly just raw data, Florida should be like in the top 10. And we have not ranked in that in quite some time. So my hope would be to follow up that we would be much more aggressive in that process in asking for that reimplication or readdressing the process.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Wayne.
I can make the statement that our state secretary, Secretary Perdue, has had some very frank, very strong conversations with our federal legislative bodies. Basically making the same statements that you've heard over here, that a more equitable method of distribution of funds is necessary, and that they did not feel that the state of Florida was adequately represented in the prior administration as far as funding distribution place. He's had the opportunity to speak in front of Congress at least one time that I am specifically aware of, and I believe other times as well. And that's been a position that he has taken as far as communications throughout the state as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Wayne. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on.
Dave.
Sorry, Dave.
A
Apologies.
quick comment, Chair, Dr. Nunder. Discussions for the next reauthorization are underway, and we get on the sides of some of those with groups like AASHTO, which is the Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, AMPO, the National Association of MPOs, NARC, National Association of Regional Councils, which houses lots of MPOs and is involved in, local government issues all through the country, are all working with the League of Cities, National Association of Counties to address some of these issues. And clearly, the MPO process will probably come up as well. What is the value? And the value is the ability to have a ready, vetted list of priorities that have been agreed to regionally and that make sense from a data-driven standpoint across the country. And I think that whatever comes out of Congress with the new administration is going to continue to focus on safety, resilience, and project readiness, which equals project delivery. We're gonna, in our region, we in the update of our long-range plan are looking for focusing on key projects that can be transformative investments in our transportation system that will make a difference, like what you've been talking about here this morning. So, stay tuned. as far as what our project list will look like, and I think it will be of value in the upcoming reauthorization. We do anticipate that there, will be another authorization package. Transportation fundings from the federal government's probably not going to go away. And if we have project readiness, we used to talk about shovel-ready projects. Those are the ones that sometimes are ready to take the money, and they get the money. So, projects follow plans. We have plans. We're going to try to help you all be ready to get this money in resilience, in safety, et cetera. And that's what we do at the MPO. And hopefully we'll continue to be successful. The formula versus discretionary funding argument is a very important one, because the discretionary money had to go through a whole new application process. They had to issue funding opportunity notices for each block of funding, and then somebody had to sort and rank those, and a whole new accounting systems were developed. So the formula funding, that's already in place, and states are very good at getting those monies spent on projects that have already been vetted and are supported by and requested by the local governments. One of the questions is, well, how much attention does the state have to pay to the local governments? And the MPO process, again, is right there with a mechanism for that collaborative, cooperative discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, and appreciate all your hard work, you and all your team staff. Any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to Mayor Gene Brown. He's going to give us our MPOAC report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but due to 10 inches of snow in Florida, the MPOAC meeting was canceled and rescheduled to the end of February. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to report because of 10 inches of snow in Florida.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. That's interesting. What is snow? I've heard about that. Yeah.
I was prepared and ready to go and got the call. I guess, obviously, the people that are up in the north part of Florida, when you get here,
Yeah.
10 was closed. So, we know that you never think about snow for that part of it, but we know what weather's like, and that's just been affecting this state quite a bit. Okay. Ready for the next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Next, we're going to move on to our Executive Director, Dave Hutchinson, for his MPO report. Hey, Dave.
Thank you. Very briefly, at your places, there was a one-page financial overview. The MPO operates on a 2-year budget, our Unified Planning Work Program, and with approximately 3/4 of the first year gone, we are under budget and have one more quarter plus next year in which that budget is available to us. And we'll keep you posted anytime you want to dig into the Unified Planning Work Program. You're going to hear about some of the upcoming efforts today and at future meetings. So all geared to, focusing on project delivery that we talked about earlier. Had some good orientations and meetings with some of you. I want to reiterate that I'm available anytime, and our staff is available to meet with you to go through transportation issues, and some orientations and meetings still scheduled to come. We are going out for procurement for general planning consultants. We do that every 3 to 5 years, depending on the schedule. And that is underway now. And we will be bringing you new contracts for your ratification and approval to execute in May. And we talked about the state certification, which is done annually. The letter was sent to our chair, was actually, and Chair Nunder can talk about that, regarding the quadrennial federal certification, which takes place this year. And last, I want to always give credit to our staff, the staff we have is very diligent, and we work hard to implement what you tell us you want done. And recently, one of our planners, Varshini Renakanta, was recognized by the district in the American Planning Association Florida section covering our area as Planner of the Year. So and she celebrated her. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. Before I get into my report, I stay on these scripts, Dave. Everybody tells me to stay on the scripts, but I'm going to jump the script a little bit today. We have a couple of new members here today. I'd like to give them an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves to the rest of us. Tell us your likes, your dislikes, hopes, dreams, etc. Anything and all things will do. Commissioner Bearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Um, the main thing I focus on relative to MPO is just not roads. I think people know that I pushed for the fare free in Manatee County, which has been very successful. I've been working very hard on multimodal trail systems, trying to expand that to include e-bike lanes, things like that. Just like Commissioner Bearden, my goal is to get people someplace faster, whether that's carpool lanes or dedicated transit lanes or transit off the roads with water taxis and bikes and whatever. I don't think paving ourselves into a fix is ever going to work. It's just going to keep getting worse. We need to start thinking about other options, and that's why I'm hopefully here.
Great. Sarasota County, we're going to have jetpacks here shortly, Commissioner, just so you know. We're going to be the first on jetpacks, Sarasota County. You heard it here first, but appreciate that. I'll take a quick second. Pete, it's good to see you. It has been quite a long time, sir.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say it's great to see your face. It looks like you're in great health. I hope things are working well. If you'd like to say a few words, by all means, please do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was last March when I broke my neck in 2 places, and I'm at about 85% recovery right now, and things are looking very hopeful. And one of my dislikes out there is people not watching out for motorcycles. So
All right, Pete. Well,
let's keep an eye out for them out there. So thank you
yes,
very
sir.
much.
Yes, sir. It is really good to have you back, and Godspeed, sir. Okay. So I will do this, and Dave, I have this letter here in front of me. It might be prudent if, Madam Clerk, if we could get this letter out to the rest of the board, post-meeting. I think what I'll do is I'll just take a couple of excerpts and I'll just read from the letter, if that's okay. Give me about a minute of time so that we can read some of this into the record. And so this is actually to Mayor Brown. This is to Mayor Brown. Federal law requires the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration to jointly certify each transportation management area planning process at least every 4 years. TMAs are urbanized areas with 200,000 or more in population. Plans are underway to schedule and conduct a site visit for the TMA certification in the Sarasota Manatee TMA, more commonly known as the Sarasota Manatee Metropolitan Planning Organization. As agreed through the most recent conversation, staff of the MPO, the Florida Department of Transportation, and members of the Federal Review Team, the site visit portion with FHWA and FTA, the certification review with the Sarasota MPO will be conducted July 16th and 17th, 2025. Again, that's July 16th through the 17th, 2025. Please note that the site visit may be reduced in length once the desk audit and review portion of the certification have been completed. Let's see. That's really about it, I think, Dave. I mean, that covers the dates, that covers the process a little bit. Madam Clerk, if we could just get this to everybody, if anybody wants to participate, there is an option for board members to participate in the process. So if you have an interest and you have the time, highly encourage everybody to maybe check that out. Next, we are going to move on to agenda consent item number 6. Mr. Hutchison, will you read the title of each item for the record, please?
Yes, the consent agenda item includes the Sarasota Manatee MPO board meeting minutes of November 25th, 2024, approval of those minutes, ratification of Citizen Advisory Committee officers, which comes to the board. And I would note that Kurt Landenfield, representing the city of Bradenton, is the nominated chair by the committee, Citizens Advisory Committee, and Tom Ratsky, representing Sarasota County, is the 2025 vice chair, submitted for your ratification. They're here today. So thank you. Thanks for their participation. And last, the Sarasota Manatee MPO committee appointments and reappointments, which consists of the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee. That comes to you every January for reappointment to that board. And I believe they're all the same members. And they've been doing a lot of great work on our active transportation planning and safety items.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. Do I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented, please?
So moved.
Well, we have a first and a first. I'll give it to Mayor Brown and a second by Commissioner Koch. Any discussion on these items, please? Seeing no discussions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we're moving on to, agenda item number 7. 7A, Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. Amendments presented by our own Pamela Barr from FDOT, please.
Hi, Pam Barr again with FDOT. So we are requesting that the MPO amend their TIP or Transportation Improvement Plan with 5 different amendments. Of which 4 of them are grant related through the transit system that we were just talking about earlier in this meeting. We have a project 435861-2, which is a 5310 capital grant for Sarasota Manatee Meals on Wheels. We have a 438959-1, which is a 5310 operating assistance for Manatee County Area Transit. Whoa. And this amount was in the amount of funds added in 1,170,126. We have a 455188-1, which is State Route 70, 15th Street to 87th Street. This was a new project that was added into the MPO's TIP for the design phase for a safety project on the Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS. This included things such as lighting, traffic signals, the yield to pedestrian signs, things that will help with the safety in that area. The amount for that was I've got it listed here. My apologies. 820,432. Thank you. The 4th project was 455239-1, which is Sarasota County's operating service development for Route 77 expansion. This is a new project that was added to the MPO's TIP for 2025. It was funded through the State Service Development Grant. And then the last one was 451142-1, which is another 5310 capital grant for Sarasota Bradenton for the county breeze. This is a new project added to the MPO's chip for FY25. The transit project funded through the Federal Transit Administration 5310 program, and the funds added was $533.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barr. Any questions for Ms. Barr? Okay, seeing no questions at this time, this vote will require a vote by a show of hands. Do I have a motion to approve the Transportation Improvement Program amendments, please? Commissioner Koch is your motion. Second. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. To your motions, any comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands, please. Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to section 7B, 2021-2025 safety targets setting. We have Ms. Nina Venter and the MPO will present this item. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Nina Venter, Senior Planner, MPO staff. The item we're bringing to you today is the annual adoption of our safety performance targets. This is something that we do every year. So what I'll do in our presentation is present some background information, go through some of the crash trends, and then open for discussion on those targets. I'd like to open with our Destination Safety Action Plan, which was adopted by this board in early 2022, just as an introduction and a reintroduction to new and current members. This is a safety action plan that for the regional Sarasota Manatee MPO area. The goal of the plan is significant reductions in fatal and serious injury crashes by 2045. This will be renewed for 2050 with the new LRTP to be adopted in October. The basic principle and ethos of the plan is that life-ending and life-changing roadway crashes are unacceptable. And in the work that we do through planning, engineering, education, and so on, we work towards that goal of zero fatalities and serious injuries. It is organized around the FHWA safe system approach, and I believe there is a handout at your stations on the safe system approach. The strategies for the safety action plan are holistic and comprehensive. There are identifiable and actionable strategies around these 6 groups: engineering, equity, education, enforcement, engagement, and emergency response. The action plan does identify high crash locations and as well as a bike ped high injury network. And we are currently in the process of updating those high priority crash locations. It is based on the high injury network, which is also at your station. So the high injury network is a set of 12 segments or 20 segments that have a disproportionately high rate of fatal and serious injury crashes in the 2-county area. So we'll be using that high injury network to do a further analysis using that data to identify specific locations and segments that we can allocate funding for safety improvements. And so that is something that we are working on currently. In addition to the Destination Zero plan, Sarasota County and Manatee County is also working on safety action plans, and FDOT has a safety action plan specifically for roads in Manatee County. So these plans all kind of work together to work us closer to that goal of Destination Zero. Safety performance target setting is a federally mandated process. We are required to adopt targets for average fatalities, fatality rate, serious injury rate, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injury, so specifically bicyclists and pedestrians. These are 5-year rolling averages, and the rate is per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. MPOs can choose to either support the statewide safety targets or establish their own safety targets for the planning area. This will be the 8th set of safety targets that this MPO board is adopting. It is due to the state on February 27th. So just taking a historic look at the crash trend relative to the adopted safety targets. So what you see in that darker, more orange color is the crash trend, and the black line is what those adopted targets are. So we'll go through each of the 5 performance measures. I do want to make a point to note that the 2024 data included here are estimates. The crash data is not yet complete. Crash reports are to be submitted up to 30 days after a crash has happened. So we don't yet have the full set of 2024 crash data, and then it may still change. 2024 VMT data is also an estimate. FDOT has not yet released the 2024 VMT data, so this is also a projection and an estimate. So just keep that in your mind. And these are 5-year rolling averages to take a closer look at the larger trends that's happening in the MPO area. So starting in 2018, the MPO had opted to adopt targets of 109, very specific targets, and then in 2023 moved to targets of 0. So you see an increasing fatality rate or average in fatalities relative to those adopted targets. Thank you, David. Here we see average fatality rate, which is against the VMT. Also adopted very specific targets and then moved down to 0 in 2023 and 2024. This is the serious injury rate. Serious injuries on average are going down nationwide. This is a very persistent trend. Very good progress to see. And so again, adopted very specific targets and then moved down to 0 in 2023. This is that serious injury rate, a very similar decreasing trend. And then, thank you, non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. This has been has seen on average a very steady decline over the years, but it is more or less a very stable number. Again, very specific target set, and then it went down to 0 in 2023 and 2024. So this is just taking a closer look at those specific numbers against each of the performance measures. And so for the 5-year rolling averages, fatalities and fatality rate are steadily increasing. So from 2020 to 2024, we're seeing about an increase of 6.4% for average fatalities and then 5% for fatality rate. In that same time period, serious injuries and serious injury rate is declining, so about 39% and 42%. Again, this is a very persistent trend. The rates in fatalities increasing or plateauing is also a very persistent trend in the nation. For non-motorized users, our bicyclists and pedestrians, fatalities on average are increasing. So we've seen an increase of about 26.5%, 27%, and serious injuries are coming down. So for total, we're seeing a decrease in 8.67%, but that increase in fatalities is absolutely worth noting as well. Thank you. So this is just a closer look, looking at relative to all of the growth that's happened in the area, what is our VMT doing and what are annual crashes doing? So looking at the same time period from 2020 to 2024, we've seen an increase in 6.4% in VMT and an increase in 5% of total annual crashes. So regardless of injury severity. We've also had very specific requests from the board to take a look at crashes relative to the population and population growth. So we don't have 2024 estimates yet. Keep in mind, this is also 5-year population estimates. So if it looks a little lower, it's because they're rolling averages. So we've seen an increase in population of about 8.2% from 2019 to 2023. So taking a look at total crashes and fatalities by population, so holding population growth steady. Total crashes are at a bit of a plateau. We've seen a marginal decrease of about 1.3%. Fatalities by population are holding steady, so an increase of about 0.7%. So holding growth steady, those fatalities are more or less plateauing. With that said, a plateauing number is not going to get us anywhere to 0. It is not a decreasing trend line. Taking a look at serious injuries by population per 100,000 people, we've seen about a decrease in 48.2%. So that trend line holding steady. Non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries have also decreased by 11.6%. That's about 160 people per 100,000 in 2023. Focusing on that bike ped non-motorized numbers, I do want to note that looking at the 2024 data, about 30%, almost 1 in 3 of the people who died on our roadways in Sarasota Manatee is a bicyclist or a pedestrian. So while serious injury rates are coming down, we do want to pay attention that roads are not safe for our most vulnerable road users. And this could perhaps be an increase from what we had seen in previous years as well. Segue just a little bit, our transit agencies are also required to adopt safety performance targets. So we do present this to the board, and the board has historically voted to consider a support for those safety targets. So I'll just briefly show those to you. Can't speak very much to this, but MCAT safety targets were adopted for 0 fatalities and 0 injuries for both fixed route and paratransit. And then Breeze Transit's targets are in draft format until they are formally adopted by their governing board. So we're seeing 0 fatalities as those targets and then a number for those injuries. So that's just some background information and some data to consider. We are proposing targets of 0, which is consistent with the state's targets, as well as targets adopted by the board in the last 2 years. For reference, there are the 2023 estimated and 2024 estimated, as well as projected data of what the numbers may look like next year. Again, the 2024 data is incomplete, and those numbers are likely underestimates. The Technical Advisory Committee had unanimous support for the proposed safety targets. The Citizens Advisory Committee recommended revised safety targets based on historic crash data and considered more of a 5 to 10% decrease in safety targets, leading to 0 over the next 25 years. That's all I've got for you. Thank you.
Stenner, are we done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Give me a quick moment here. I need to read some of the recommendations into the record. This is recommended action. Adoption of the proposed 2021 through 2025 MPO safety targets for the Sarasota Manatee region and support the transit safety targets set by Manatee County Area Transit and Sarasota County Breeze set forth in their respective public transportation agency safety plans. Committee recommendation. The Technical Advisory Committee recommended board adoption of the proposed 2021 through 25 MPO safety targets in support of the transit safety targets set by NCAT and Sarasota County Breeze Transit. Citizens Advisory Committee recommends 2021 through 2025 MPO safety targets based on historic crash trends and with the gradual reductions in safety targets over time. Is there any discussion on this from the board? Commissioner Koch?
So we had public comment about the Vision Zero and those targets, and the recommendation is to set achievable goals, I guess, hopefully. Seeing that the trend in fatalities is either holding steady, increasing, or slightly declining, serious injuries are going down. And I'm curious about, what your thoughts are on why that is. But going back to the comments from the community about setting those, changing the targets. I was part of the conversation a while ago when this came up. But if we could get someone to sort of summarize why this board chose to stick with Vision Zero of accepting 0 fatalities, what that logic is, I think it would be a good reminder to all of us here, to some of the new members about why sticking with Vision Zero is something we may or may not want to do, and have some discussion about that. I wouldn't mind hearing other members' comments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Koch. Is there any other members wanted to weigh in on that? Dave, Commissioner Koch wanted to know if there's maybe a little history here for our new members. Maybe we could just take a minute. I know we're on a time crunch too, so.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, the main reason was this is a federal requirement that we adopt these rolling average targets, and the state at some point determined that they were going to adopt 0. Now, for the first few years, we set our own, the board adopted separate targets. We made some of them, some we didn't. The trends are what they are, that we heard described very well by Nina, but we wanted to support the state Florida DOT. That's the bottom line of why this board chose to support zero and adopt it.
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, and similarly, Ryan Brown, Deputy Director Planning Manager with the MPO. I just want to add, historically, the MPO, when we started, there was some perception of potential either punishment or reward for how you were going to set your targets, right? So the MPO took a more conservative approach earlier in the process due to the federal government potentially either withholding funds if you're not meeting your targets or potentially rewarding you if you did. That has not really panned out or really has been the case across the board. There has been no punishment and there has been no reward if you've met those targets. Just speaking across the board, there was some comments about the state of Florida and their approach. That is correct. A number of other states followed what we did previously, which was set a more realistic short-term goal with a approach to zero out in those outer years. So for this last LRTP, it was 2045. We're moving to the 2050. So you'll see a number of states, Georgia, Texas, similar, I would say, to our growth in the South and Sun Belt. They have those short-term targets with a longer-term goal of zero. We feel, and I think we support the state in the way that, setting those targets and setting them based on data is not going to change the trends, regardless of all the work that the MPO is doing, the state's doing, and your local governments are doing to bring those numbers down. Any life lost or any injury on our system is viewed as unacceptable. And I think that is the approach that we've taken. And that's the history of where the board took that step to zero rather than setting a target against that actual number. So a little bit more history there.
Thank you, Ryan. Any additional comments, discussion from the board? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. We have recently had a lot of discussion about the school zones. We've got 2 elementary schools that are on state roads, and as I understand it, we applied to have school zones on there, and we're told we didn't meet a threshold. It's a little counterintuitive. I don't know what
That would be a state, warrant for that, and also through the Safe Route to School program. So I'm not sure if they're making school zones, that would be on a state facility, would be up to state warrants to meet that. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Did you want to chime in, Victor? Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Really brief. Florida Department of Transportation would really just like to reiterate the footnote that you got. Vision Zero is a statement that says no death or serious injury is acceptable. That's what we pursue. That's what we're working with all of our MPOs towards achieving. This does not preclude the incremental steps to continuously reduce fatalities and serious injury crashes or any crashes that occur on our roadway networks.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. At this time, yep, yes, sir. Once, ma'am.
On a slightly different note, so this does a good job of sharing the data, the trends, looking at the trends in different ways that we've asked for before, but it doesn't really explain why fatalities are more or less flat, but serious injuries are way, way down. And it doesn't explain what successes we've had or what successes we haven't had in these key areas where people are getting hurt.
Sure.
And I assume that's maybe another report, but if we don't every year look at what we tried to do and did it work or not, and if it didn't work, what are we going to do different for the next year to get fatalities down, then I don't think we're doing our job.
Sure.
So is that another report that we'll see later?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the action plan, as Nita mentioned and was discussed previously, was just the first step. There's multiple spin-off reports that have to deal with implementation. So education was our focus this year. There's also engineering and enforcement. There's lots of things that go into the overall safety picture and the performance of our region. Yes, there will be continued before and after studies. We're working with a private contractor and data source to better understand when projects were leaded and actually completed, and understanding, if we went out and did, leading pedestrian intervals or yield signs or whatever it might be, crosswalks or hawks, things like that, we'll be able to better understand the data before and after for some of those things. And then some of the insights, I can give you an idea. There hasn't been a lot of formal, federal or state guidance on why serious injuries have come down. But the assumption is that, overall cars are getting safer. So car to car accidents are resulting in a lot less serious injuries, unless you're speeding or distracted at a rate at which you can cause yourself to be killed. Also, the relationship with pedestrian and bicyclist accidents, as Nina presented, it's a 30% of our fatalities related to auto on pedestrian or bicyclists event. So those typically do result in a higher level or higher rate of fatality in a car versus a pedestrian or a bicyclist. So those are some general trends for our area. We can continue to study and better understand why those things are specifically happening. But we do have actions and plans in place to do performative studies on before and afters of the things that we're doing in the field.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Ryan. Any further comment? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
I think I may have asked this before, maybe it was last year. Do we have data on the accidents, fatalities and so on based on visitors versus residents? And do we have this thing broken down into ages like,
Yes, we do have crash reports for each of those events. Whether or not they were visitors is up to how it was reported in the crash report. So you can't really make assumptions. It's really as good as the information that's provided. We worked and actually spoke directly with Signal 4 Analytics, the contract the state has for data reporting, as well as Florida Highway Motor Safety Vehicles. We had a meeting with them as well last year, and we've had some questions about that and how reporting is done and making sure we have a complete picture. That is part of the issue behind setting some of these is the data set might not be entirely complete. We've had to go and do a lot of sorting and an understanding of the data to make sure that the information that we're giving you all is as accurate as possible. That's something that I think would be a great relative piece of information for us to better understand our situation. But unless it is specifically described in the reporting of that way, we wouldn't really know that. But we do know specifically, on the government side and not to the public sharing, we do know exactly each one of those crashes. We do have reports for each of those fatalities if you're interested.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Beard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, at what point do you make a decision in regards to a fatality or how many fatalities are in a certain intersection that you need to make improvement?
So that there's a multitude of things that go into that. So the state helps us with a lot of that analysis as well. As to no surprise, if you look at our top, also on one of your handouts on the back of that handout, is a map of our high injury network. To no one's surprise, a lot of those are state road facilities, and there are standards at which they're met. The state did a District 1 wide analysis of those locations. Manatee County had a number of locations, actually the worst in the entire district being there at Cortez and 41, which has been that way for quite some time. And that's why there's that level of investment into crosswalks and leading pedestrian intervals. And lots of activity there in the middle of Manatee County. So we are aware of that, and there are lots of improvements happening. To say I couldn't give you maybe Wayne can give you a more accurate number, but I can't say exact number at which it hits a threshold in which we're going to go out and do set improvement.
Why do you believe it's worse?
Politically correct.
Well, or why is it worse?
It's not. It has a lot to do with the environment, right? And I think it's a highly concentrated commercial area for one. There's also a number of households that are low income and have no vehicles. So we see a lot more pedestrian and bicyclist activity along that corridor. So if you drive down that corridor, you can see lots of people crossing where there are not crosswalks or when the light's still green or whatever it might be. There's just a lot of moving and a lot of activity and a lot of conflict points. So you've driven down, 41, obviously we all have. There's lots of entries and exits along US 41. That end up creating lots of conflict points for people coming out and people walking down those sidewalks. A lot of activity. I believe it was 5 in the last year in that same corridor. 5 fatalities just in that northern part of US 41 and Cortez, generally related to those types of activities.
So, I mean, these accidents have been happening for several years now. I mean, why all of a sudden? Like I said, what is the breaking point to say, you know what? We need to do something about this intersection. I mean, obviously they've been happening for how many years now?
Yeah, and there has been extensive investment. I don't know if Wayne, if you want to give a few project examples in that area.
Yeah, Wayne, and then just for just public service announcement here, we're coming close to the 11 o'clock meeting hour. So Brian, when we get to section 8, let's kind of giddy up.
Yep.
And then certainly if the board, you guys have individual questions, my suggestion would be to email Ryan, Dave, get that info out in an expeditious manner. Thank you, sir. Go ahead. You're recognized.
Very quickly, the answer to Mr. Chair on that one. I wouldn't say that there's a specific threshold that's in place, but the information that Ryan's bringing up is definitely categorized. It's looked at And then determinations are made as to where and when we should be putting our resources toward addressing specific issues. We've identified several locations, specifically within the Manatee County area, that are significantly higher than some of the other areas. We've made we've worked very closely with your MPO staff to address those concerns, and we've made a significant amount of safety dollars toward addressing specific issues that we've got. So we take a look at the accident information. Pedestrian bicyclists, we respond with pedestrian bicyclist treatments, either at intersections or along corridors to try to give them a safer path forward. We can work on getting that information, the safety dollars along those corridors over to you though.
That'd be great, Wayne. Wayne, my last question just would be, who makes that decision? Do you guys make that decision, or does this board make that decision on where improvements need to be made?
I would say it's collaborative, easily could say that this is collaborative, but we do work, the department does work independently as well in working on addressing any state road safety concerns that we have. But projects are identified through the department, or through your MPO, and are shared with us as well. We can identify safety projects through the list of priority projects.
Now, are those voted on?
Through your list of priority projects, they certainly are.
Okay.
By this board.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And I would just like to, restate that the MPO, in setting a target, we don't operate any facilities. We don't, build them. We set priorities, and we actually have gone out to all of these high injury crash locations with your staffs of whichever jurisdiction it's in, and done safety audits and come up with specific potential improvements for those areas. And we share that with Florida DOT. Most of these are on the state highway system, but if it's off the state highway system, then there might be a vote on it actually. At a local jurisdiction, if FDOT makes an improvement, there probably isn't a vote unless they go seek specific support. A lot of times if they go out and want to try to lower a speed limit, there's opposition to lowering that speed limit. If they want to put in a median barrier and make it harder to get in and out of businesses, there's not always support for those types of projects, even though they might contribute to safety. So it is a, there's a lot that goes into it, and we are making progress. And I think that the analysis that we've done that's already on file will show that in specific locations. They put in all these crosswalks on Cortez, and there was a question as to whether or not they actually, did any good. But FDOT went out and did a snapshot type of an analysis, and their indication was that they actually were getting used not 100% of the time, and they thought that they were overall had been effective in reducing the problem in that particular area on Cortez. So, but that may not be the solution in every location. And again, it's a partnership with the local government.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Any further questions, discussion? All right, what is the will of the board? Do I have a motion, please? Oh, yeah, yes. All right, we have a motion by Mayor Brown,
Second.
second by Commissioner Koch. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to section 7C, top 10 accomplishments. We have Miss Grace, or Ryan, are you doing this?
She is
Okay.
out sick today, so you
Okay.
gave me instead.
Thank you, sir.
Real briefly, this is something that we try to do on an annual basis. And as much as it's, an accomplishment of the MPO staff, it's also the accomplishments of this board. And really high level, the attachment, the complete attachment was in your agenda packet. These are just a few things that I wanted to hit on in the presentation, and I won't make it long now. I know we're short on time, but really we try to break them down in a number of ways, whether it's projects or implementation or planning. As mentioned and mentioned by all of you this morning, and Wayne as well with FDOT, is, our number one is getting your priorities funded in the work program. And I think we did a great job this year of moving those priorities forward. There's a number of projects across the board, all in capacity, resiliency, safety, active transportation, all those things, a number of projects and priorities funded this year. And as Dave mentioned, we're happy to come and talk to you about those as well. Our adopted planning studies, we've done more planning work, I think, in the last several years than the MPO has done maybe in its existence. We've funded and moving forward on 6 completed studies, and we've got 4 in motion now. The MPO is using those funding and those planning studies to move your priorities forward. That's simply why they are in place. The findings of those studies are what gets priorities funded in the work program. We kicked off a number of new studies, as I mentioned, and I'll cover a few of those later on. So I won't cover too much. You've got presentations on those coming up, so I won't hold up too much there. Our 2050 long range plan, we've been working through that for the last year and a half with an adoption date coming up here in October. We've got a number of other activities for you all, including another survey and a third forum where you all get to participate and provide updates of your jurisdictions. We also have set up tours with each of your jurisdictions to discuss your priorities as we continue to develop the cost feasible plan. Public engagement, I probably won't be able to say this as eloquently as Grace, but we've done a number of outreach events as well as surveys to make sure that we are garnishing and getting the number of feedbacks that we can. Our Citizens Advisory Committee has done a great job this year. They've been extremely well involved in providing feedback, as well as going out to public events like farmers markets, libraries, et cetera, as we've made things available to the public. Safety, as we just talked about, I don't think I need to cover that too much more, but it was a huge priority for the MPO, and we're continuing to invest a significant amount of safety resources along with the state to address those concerns. Regional trail development, I know Commissioner Cruz mentioned that. We're working, at length, and he has done a great job with our team to continue to build our trail development network, both in northern Manatee County and southern Sarasota County. We've got new priorities on our Sun Trail list. Resiliency, it's been a tough year, I think, for everyone in 2024 when it came to storm events and how we adapt and deal with those things. We're continuing to evaluate our system and looking at another level of implementation and understanding how infrastructure investments overlay with floodplains and things like that. We also participated in a number of presentations and panels. I can't count how many Dave and I have been to give presentations on the things that we've done and share the message of all the things that you all have done as a board, as well as, ample committee meetings. I know Dave always likes to say where meetings are us, but we hosted ourselves 38 committee meetings and 5 boards and participated in probably hundreds. But that's really what I wanted to cover on that front. We also have for you our strategic priorities, which outline what we're working on over the next year. Those are broken into typically planning, implementation, administration. So really, I won't dive into this a whole lot. I know we've got a lot to do. You're going to hear about a number of these studies coming up here. You can go to the next, please. Implementation, a lot of what I just covered. We're going to continue to roll out a lot of our LRTP priorities, safety action plan, as well as updating our project priority process with the involvement of your staff, as well as continuing to roll out a number of projects and new investment. Administration, I think Dave did a great job covering this in his report, so don't think I need to cover these. We're having our federal certification and our GPCs are currently open for proposals. And lastly, engagement. We're working on, I think it's been discussed with the MPOAC as well, and it's available to you all. Any new board orientation programs, as well as advisory committee orientations. We've done a number of those. I know Dave and I will continue to come out and meet you all if any requests are made, as well as our long range plan, which will have a substantial engagement component as well. And that's really all I have. Really, this is not a formal vote on this. It's just affirming these top 10 accomplishments of you all and of the MPO.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Do I have a motion to affirm the 2024 top 10 accomplishments?
So moved.
We have moved by
Second.
Commissioner Koch, second by Commissioner Langdon. All those in favor? Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to section 8 of our agenda today, they will be presentations. We will start with the MPO presentations, 8AI draft 2025 project priorities. Ryan, you are on for this one.
And I've got one amendment for you as well. We're going to move the next presentation to the joint meeting, so you all hear that. And I think it's applicable for the implementation of the Barrier Island study. We'll move that to the next meeting in order to keep this on track. So for this one, as mentioned, we do an annual call for projects. And this is our first step in draft attempt at that. Your jurisdictional staff, we worked with him over the end of 2024 to get our new application submitted. Really, this list is a draft of all of those applications provided to the MPO. I don't have a vote or anything at this time for this. We wanted to make sure this was all, in your hands here in early January, for a formal vote out in March. I'm happy to take any questions on the priorities where they stand at this time, and know that we will work with you all over the next few months, to make sure that they're ready to go and ready for a vote in March.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Commissioner Koch, question?
Yes, thank you. I hope this question does not come as a surprise to you. I know it doesn't come as a surprise to Mr. Hutchinson. On this, we have the priorities under the multimodal emphasis corridor. And there is listed US 41. Where is it? I'm sorry, it's 433-276-1. Martin Luther King and Myrtle, the roundabouts there. It's listed in green as funded. It has CST like it's under construction.
It needs construction
Okay,
funding. Correct.
it needs construction.
Correct.
And it's my understanding that the funding, that is not completely accurate, that there was one design and then the second design made it a larger project to be more efficient and more
Sure.
all-encompassing of other goals. And that is putting it in a category of where there has to be land acquisition, and the funding is not there for the land acquisition. So this project has completely stalled and has been put off by a number of years. I would like to ask this board or you all to consider putting more emphasis on this project. This has been one of the very important pieces of the puzzle for the roundabout project in Sarasota and Manatee counties. The idea is on that last item, we had that map that showed the fatalities that you were talking about, that we're all talking about. And one of them is US 41 from MLK North. A big issue is slowing down traffic. And what we have seen, and I can attest to anecdotally and also with data, is that the roundabouts on US 41 do in fact slow down traffic. And they work best when they are in successions. One roundabout, okay. 2 or 3 or 4 works much better. Folks do not want to accelerate when they know they've got another roundabout that they can visually see in front of them. So it is a very important tool to slow down traffic. Not only that, it is a tool for sustainability, it is a tool for connectivity and pedestrian activity. I can also attest to the use of our parks in Sarasota, where 41 divided our city. It is now easy and safe to get across. It checks a number of boxes. And so these 2 roundabouts, which were planned as part of our roundabout project, have now been sort of put on pause. And I don't know what we can do to create some emphasis there, but I think it's one of the pieces that needs to happen in order to make the other roundabouts in Sarasota more efficient and safe and effective.
Absolutely. And I can refer to Wayne as well. I know we've had discussions with our priority list. We actually talked about this project last year and what we need to do to address it. I know there's been a number of design changes related to the footprint needed, the radii of some of these roundabouts. So that's speaking to your need for additional right of way. So the MPO will certainly work diligently with the department to better understand what the actual fiscal need and ask is going to be, and see if that is something that we can help address. Obviously, everything has to work within reason of what we have available and can budget towards that. But we will look for solutions and alternatives to make sure that's moving forward.
And if there's anything we can do, we can do or I can do, please reach out and let me know.
Absolutely. We can do that.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there ways that the cities or the counties can help with some of that acquisition on property through funding that can be reimbursed later?
Absolutely. I think that is a huge part of this conversation that Wayne mentioned in terms of cost. Construction is always expensive, but I think one that we've really had to deal with and absorb at a great rate and has been a deterrent for a number of projects has been the acquisition of right of way or the necessary right of way to get these things completed. Really, we can account for the cost of some of those things. Construction, we know, is effectively doubled since COVID. But right of way has truly, I think, blown out of proportion in some cases that it makes it very hard to overcome and make sure these things are moving forward. So yes, I would certainly take any assistance and any help from either the state or any local jurisdictions to make right of way more available. We can certainly work with you on construction. Wayne, if you want to add anything.
Mr. Chair, if I can just make one small
Yes, sir.
comment
Please.
on that. Yes, partnering with the local communities is always going to be a first choice on trying to make these things happen. Obviously, though, depending on the flavor of funding that is utilized on a phase of the project could impact how property can be acquired. So communication early and often on opportunities for right-of-way and construction, as Ryan was saying, would be paramount. Normally, we have PD&E and design are the more affordable components. And that is something that, the MPOs have been struggling with historically. You end up with a lot of PD&Es and a lot of design projects. You lose that balance of having right-of-way and construction coming into that. So working with your MPO, us working with your MPO to ensure that we're moving these projects forward as quickly as we can is going to be paramount. And if you can come to the table with any financial assistance or a plan in place for that, then that's definitely worth having a conversation about.
Yes, Dave.
And there is something else that is probably might not be taken well, but we need to shorten this list. This list is too long. It's confusing to FDOT when we give them, so many priorities each year. And then they come back and ask us, well, what are your real priorities? And of course, we want to fund projects that are already in the pipeline. This green color will probably by the regular meeting when you adopt these, will modify that so that it doesn't say funded, because they're not fully funded. They've had some phase funded, again, the affordable phases, but if it needs right of way, a lot of times projects may never be affordable with the available federal funds that we have coming in. So, and contributing local funds that don't have to be paid back is another potential option, but that's pretty tough too when sales tax revenues are, may not be what was planned, and transportation funds are limited, by the legislature as far as what you can collect. So lots to talk about, but if you can try not to send us 20 priorities in a given year, that would help. Not everybody does that, but we have had a few.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments? Brian? Okay. All right. Thank you. Next, Ryan, you're going to keep us moving with, it looks like 8A, transportation investment analysis.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
And that was one of the ones I was speaking under the top 10 accomplishments, is that this is a important one, I think, to Dave and myself and the team is really understanding over the last 5 or 10 years how federal, state, and local funds have been spent on our transportation and regional priorities. But that's what this study is attempting to do. We're going to be working closely with the department as well as our consulting team to better understand how much, down to the dollar, right? How much did the MPO get allocated during that time, and how much of it was spent towards what types of projects? That's really what this is looking at. It's much more complicated due to the number of funding sources that are out there, but really it's an attempt to understand how much we invested, exactly what Commissioner was talking about in terms of what caused delays in projects, right? Is it the right of way? Is it the construction? That's what this is attempting to do, is understanding, if the MPO had got, this is just a guess, don't quote me on it, it's about $10 million to $12 million a year historically before the last few years, $100 million over 10 years, simple math, right? How much of that went to actually sorting out the MPO's priorities and addressing those concerns? How much time was wasted in getting those things done? Where can we be more efficient in what we're doing? That's what this study is attempting to do. And certainly over the next 9 months, it's working in hand with the long range plan to say anything that we learn from this study will be incorporated into the LRTP as an important component of what is our implementation strategy for the LRTP and how can we address some of those inefficiencies or issues within the planning process. So that's what this is trying to do. The scope is in there for your all review, and we have kicked that off in the last month or so. I'm hoping to get some recommendations out of there shortly. That's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Any questions, comments for Ryan, staff? Okay, great. Moving on. Thank you. Ryan, looks like you're Moving on
rolling.
to the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan.
Yeah, and really we can jump over some of the early slides here and really just jump into the model and plan. A lot of this will be covered in the joint meeting as well, so don't really need to do that at this point. But really, this is the one I want to focus on related to the cost seasonal plan development. So we have been working with your all's jurisdiction and staffs to better understand what are the priorities within your region. We've got our revenue forecasts are kind of in completion. I know we've reached out to your staffs on local revenues. We've got a pretty good idea of state and federal. So that'll be completed in January. We have set up a number of meetings. We call them our town tours, where we go and meet with you all. If you'd like to come, we'd be happy to have you, but also your administration and leadership to understand exactly what those priorities are one-on-one. So we are in the process of setting those up. Those will take place in February and March. There will be a big stakeholder workshop in April. And then hopefully by May, we've got an outline of the cost feasible plan, as well as they've kind of mentioned a long list probably of unfunded needs to better understand how we can help support those. Next slide, please. Really the other attachment in this, and really the main other piece within this LRTP presentation, was related to the cost feasible model and development of that model. I included a map from alternative 2 in there. It's somewhat complicated. If you'd like to dive into the details, we'd be happy to set up one-on-ones with you all. But the model is there to better understand future transportation demand within our system. We're currently there at alternative 2, and we have set up meetings with both counties so far to discuss anything that might not be in the existing plus committed network. That's a long way of saying roads that already exist or are going to exist here in the near future. How we assign trips to the roadway network is what the model attempts to do. So we'll be working through those alternatives here in the next few months to get out really where we're going to expect the greatest congestion over the next 25 years or so. And with that, I'll take any questions related to the LRTP. There'll be more in the next meeting as well.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Ryan. Next, moving on to FDOT presentations, Ms. Barr, please.
I know we were informed that this video, which is showing the FDOT work with Hurricanes Helene and Milton, is going to be shown at the next joint meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was
Yes,
just going
ma'am.
to ask, something that you'd like to move to the joint meeting in an effort to save a little bit of time?
Absolutely, that sounds good, and
You okay
yeah,
with
we
that?
could all benefit from that. Okay,
Do that then.
wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Barr. Appreciate it. Okay. Next, moving on to member comments. I will just look around from my left to my right. Do we have any comments from this side of the dais? Any comments here? No. We'll start down here. Any comments here? Yes, Mayor.
I do, and I think it's important, and we did have a citizen come up and citizen comment and talk about obviously going through with DOT and some of the transportation. And I just want everyone to kind of hear that, you know, since I got on this board and been on our city council in the city of Braden, now mayor, and for 30+ years, we have transportation issues that have grown, and you can say shame on us. Maybe none of us in this room, but shame on us as government that something hasn't been done sooner. And in the 90s, when there was an opportunity to put a third bridge, when there wasn't as many homes, there wasn't the connections across the Manatee River, that government at that time, and the government of Manatee County, the government of City of Bradenton, the government of Palmetto, and FDOT did nothing. And if we do nothing now, shame on us. And unfortunately, you know, the 3 plans that it's gone down to will go down to 1 eventually. And I think that's coming pretty soon in this summer to know, but we have to look at it globally as a community and say, what is going to help our transportation? If we don't, and especially Manatee County, City of Bradenton, and City of Palmetto don't try to work together, we're in trouble, because it's going to be 30 years. They're going to be saying, what did those people do 30 years ago that's now turned into 60 years from when they should have made a decision on a third bridge? And I think there's alternatives that will come up that will make people happy, but it's the process that the government has to go through to get to that process, which will hurt ultimately the least amount of people. But information is king. And I hope the FDOT, which does that then puts it back on the local governments to make that final vote, because in the past, DOT would just do it, and not even consult the local governments. Now they are, but it's going to have to be some better transportation. But I'm just going to say it, shame on us if we do nothing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mayor. I will close by just looking over to my left to our Vice Mayor, Mr. Haycock. It's my understanding that this is going to be your last meeting today.
It is, yes. I termed out, served 6 years on Longboat Key as vice mayor and commissioner, and a couple years as planning and zoning lead. So I've done my 8 years. I worked for 45 years, and I'm going to really, really retire.
Yes, sir. Very good. Very good. Well, you've been here since I've been on this board, and you've been a staple here. So thank you for your service to our community. I hope you have a great retirement, great many memories out there. And I think I could probably speak for all of us in saying Godspeed and thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for attending. The next MPO board meeting is scheduled for March 24th, 2025 at 9 a.m. It's going to be located at the DoubleTree by Hilton, 8009 15th Street East in Sarasota. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Oh, Dave, did you have something?
And please stick around for the joint meeting
yes.
with Charlotte
Yep,
County
very-
Fund
about 2 minutes.
MPO
2 minutes.
in about 5 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Mess.
22.
Oh, I know.
Right, if we could have, if everybody could get settled into their seats, we're gonna get started in 1 minute.
1 minute, all right. I can't do anything about it. And MVP. Yeah. How do you know what my position is? I think most people.
All right, I see everybody getting in their seats. Some feedback, not too bad. All right. If everybody's ready, we're gonna call this joint meeting of the Charlotte County, Punta Gorda MPO and the Sarasota Manatee MPO to order for Monday, January 27th, 2025. Can I ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Ms. Eubanks, do we have a quorum from both MPOs?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Very good. I appreciate that. All right, we are now up to item number 2, which is public comment on any of the agenda items we're going to address today. If anybody from the public wishes to speak, you'll have 3 minutes. And we'll ask that you state your name and address for the record. Anybody wishing to speak? Okay, I see no one rising. We'll move on to director's comments. We'll start out with David Hutchinson from the Sarasota Manatee MPO.
Thank you, Chair Constance. I'm going to actually try to cover your item number 1, the joint interlocal agreement, as to why are we here, and give a little bit of history. And we've been doing this every year, and I think the Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO might have 1 or possibly 2 new members, and we have several new members on our MPO. And we years ago, back in 2000, there was a big push to consolidate MPOs. We had a lot in Florida, and the DOT was saying we need to combine, and we want regional coordination. And in our case, we demonstrated through some analysis that was acceptable to the state that there was better representation through this process for the citizens of our regions, that if we maintained separate MPOs, but established formal mechanisms for coordinating on our long-range planning process and other planning activities related to the federal and state funding processes. So we established at the time an interlocal agreement with the 2 MPOs. And over the years, we've had a great amount of success in prioritizing projects of mutual interest, and in having a good opportunity for the 2 boards of elected officials to exchange ideas and priorities, and to move forward as we collaborate in trying to bring federal and state money into our area. So we included in your packet the latest version of this interlocal agreement. It's now was including Lee County, because like in the year 2000, when the Bradenton, Sarasota, whatever it was named then, now it's Venice, urbanized area, and now it's urban area. As you can see on the map, back in 2000, it extended all the way down to Boca Grande. And they did not make us include Lee County in our interlocal agreement then, and in 2010, when they redrew the urban area boundaries, it cut out Boca Grande. It was not considered part of the urban area. But in 2020, it was back in the urban area, and Federal Highway said, you know, whatever you do with Charlotte County, include it for Lee. So the bottom line is, for the planning areas, we follow the county boundaries. The Sarasota Manatee MPO does the planning for the urban area that's in Sarasota County. The Punta Gorda, the Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO does the planning for the portion of the urban areas, the two urban areas, because Northport, Punta Gorda, is that what it is? Or is the other urban area? And you do the planning for the parts of those urban areas that are in Charlotte County. And then Lee County does the transportation planning for the portion of the Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice urban area that's in Lee County. So that's the bottom line. And we come up with a rotation, and we try to get some equitable split of money, of trip money. And we continue to collaborate on our long range plans. We'll talk more about that later, but that's my introductory comment, and that will save us a little time on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Mr. Harris from Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Constance. I'll be brief in my comments, and I will add to what my colleague Dave has said about the coordination, the regional coordination for planning. So the regional meeting that we have here, the joint meeting with Sarasota Manatee that we have in January, and the one we have in Lee, these are the cornerstone for these regional transportation projects that are game-changing projects, that we're ever going to make those projects a reality, like intercity rail or any type of regional airport or regional roadway system or tolls. We're going to have that regional coordination. And these meetings are that opportunity to have those discussions. I know 2050 may seem like a long ways away, but planning is the foundation for those projects in the future to be great and solid. And when you look back and your kids look back, they'll say these boards make those great decisions, that we have such diverse and multimodal transportation in Southwest Florida. And with that, I'll leave my comments at that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think it's important that we have these collaborations, as you've well pointed out. I didn't have an opportunity to speak, so I'm going to take a little personal privilege here and first thank my co-chair, Commissioner Neander, for helping with this meeting, and thank the Sarasota Manatee MPO for hosting us once again here in Venice. And I know you guys have had a long morning, so I'm trying to kind of supercharge this meeting and not waste your time. But I do want to recognize we have a couple new members from the Charlotte County MPO. We recently had Commissioner Doherty come in to make the third commissioner, and then Janine Polk is now the official representative from the city of Punta Gorda. And I don't see TJ Thornberry, but he's the one who's been representing the airport. And then from Sarasota Manatee, we have Jason Bearden from Manatee County, George Krause from Manatee County, and then Teresa Mast from Sarasota County. So those were new members that were added. And of course, we have Mr. Wayne Gaither, who is stepping in for LK Nandem, the secretary. And if there's no other comments, I'm going to turn it over for the FDOT report to Mr. Gaither.
Mr. Chair, just a few comments. My apologies. We did have a prior to this one. So it will be somewhat of a recap on some of the discussion topics. I will be brief though. So we're back in legislative session season again. One of the things I did want to bring up is there is the opportunity for what is commonly known as earmark projects to come through. While that is an opportunity for the communities to pursue, I certainly would not, Department of Transportation certainly would not want to sway communities from pursuing such an opportunity. If you choose, there are some repercussions that come with that. Generally speaking, there is not an additional set of funding that comes with an earmark. It generally comes out of the Transportation Trust Fund, which basically means as an MPO organization, you select a list of priority projects, you propose those projects into our work program, we get them programmed, and then if a earmark does come through, you're having to reallocate those funds, basically reprioritizing the priority list that you've already given us to ensure that the earmarked fund of the earmarked project receives funds. We do so at the expense potentially of an existing project that has already made your list of priority projects lists. The other thing that we work on a recurring basis, this does not impact the Charlotte MPO yet, but it won't be long before you're receiving SU dollars. We do work closely with the Sarasota Manatee staff in ensuring that we are able to maintain concurrency or contingency with our funding that's in place. So we want to ensure that the federal dollars that are allocated are spent or budgeted for a specific year, for a specific phase, and that there's not a bank of funding that is left available at the end of the year or during the year. So we want to put every dollar that we've got towards a project as quickly as we can. This helps the district and the department in budgeting and ensuring that we are able to maintain our work program. And then the last is to have a discussion, brief discussion on partnerships and prioritization of projects. Costs go up across the board. That ranges anywhere from design with the intellectual property all the way through right-of-way resources and construction. Everything has gone up. As we are looking at projects that are being submitted through the list of priority projects that are being generated by each of the MPOs, we also look for viable ways to ensure that these projects can be paid for. And sometimes that is best suited through working with the local communities to address funding gaps that may exist to ensure that a project stays within a specific time frame to ensure project continuity. So if we have those opportunities, it's best to have those conversations with your MPO staff early. We'll definitely be in conversations with them to ensure that we have a plan in place for larger projects or projects of high importance that we would just want to make sure don't slip through the cracks. And with that, I think we're good. Thank you, sir.
Do you have a comment?
I take it back. I think we're not good. There may be.
Hi, I'm Pam Barr. I'm the community liaison for Charlotte County and Sarasota Manatee. During this time, we are currently working on the 2024 joint certification programs for each of the MPOs. We are working on the draft right now, and they should be available by mid-February. And we will be reviewing these with the MPOs during the next month. Our completed certification packet will be sent to the central office by June 1st. So far, we're just working with the different MPOs. Previous years for both Sarasota Manatee and for Charlotte, the risk assessment showed that they were a low risk, and I'm hoping that that will continue.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Gaither? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 5A, which is the local agreement for joint regional transportation planning and coordination between Charlotte County, Punta Gorda, Lee, and Sarasota Manatee.
And I covered that in my remarks.
All right, so we're good?
We're good on
Okay.
that.
Very good, sir. Thank you. Any comments about that from board? Okay, we'll move on to the presentation. We haven't, we're instead of 5B, we're going to add 8A, which is the MPO presentation on the Barrier Island implementation plan.
Thank you, Ryan Brown, for the record, Deputy Director and Planning Manager. I just want to thank you all for allowing us to add this addendum to your meeting so we could start on time. And with that, I'll introduce Nathan Calasis. We're here with Kittleson and Associates and providing you a brief update on our Barrier Island implementation plan. And I think it's applicable to both communities and what we're dealing with related to resiliency and storm events and how we're looking at evaluating that, not only that side, but really from this aspect, understanding congestion on our barrier islands and what we can do to potentially mitigate some of those issues. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nathan.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here. So as Ryan said, we were looking at congestion hotspots within the area of the barrier islands, mostly from Anna Maria Island all the way down to like the Minnesota key area. We want to address congestion and improve mobility. There's a small resiliency component where we're looking at case studies around Florida and then looking at what I would call sister islands that may be doing something similar, whether it's Sanibel, the Cape, wherever, seeing what they have and finding what we can incorporate here. Enhancing visitor and resident experience, looking at other, whether it's transit, multimodal solutions, operational solutions, et cetera. Ultimately want to provide actionable recommendations that could be implemented. So one of the things, Varshini can email it out, is we're putting together a congestion dashboard. So a couple things to note about this. It is scaled, kind of like a heat map, right? Red is the worst, green is the best. Green does not mean it is doing great. It is just a scale to try to find the worst areas, right? It's arbitrary. It's something that we kind of played with to identify the worst of the worst. So, so one of the comments we get back consistently, you can see some of the bridges at the north end, looking at Cortez and 64. There is consistent congestion heading towards the islands. What we're trying to find are the point locations we can make operational improvements. So methodology, we broke it down into quarter-mile segments, created origin destination pairs using Python scripts, and then Google Directions API was created using the created segments. So what that is when you're on Google Maps and you're looking at the red spots in traffic, essentially it's that data, that real-time data, but we grabbed it historically and then projected it out. One of the reasons why we projected it out is because you've had a lot of unique events, whether it's COVID, whether it's the hurricanes, where it's impacted your traffic metrics. We don't want to grab something that's artificially low and doesn't reflect what you normally see. Now, it's not perfect. It still includes some of those as an impact. If you think about stock tickers, right? You have up and downs, but you have a general trend. What we're trying to do is draw the trend line. So we looked at what I would call on season, when the seasonal residents are here, and then more of when the summer visitors are here as well, to try to get our congestion metrics. It was put at 1 hour increments, and then those segments were ranked. Yes, sir.
Real quick, why were those dates selected though? Because if I were picking season, I would pick mid-February or even almost into March, where we have spring training. So like the last week of February, first week of March or something like that. That's really the middle of season. And then May, yeah, you've dropped off in April, but not, really June, July. So is this arbitrary? Why did you pick those segments?
We were trying to get within, part of it had to do with when the task started, right? So we wanted, if we were going to, we want to capture when seasonal residents are in here, but not necessarily when the holidays, you wanted to get right after the holidays. It was something we worked with the MPO on. It wasn't something that we chose agnostic to what the MPO desired. And then the other was trying to just find the best spot. We've worked with, so my background, I worked previously with FDOT, and we did the original Barrier Island traffic study.
Right.
A lot of data collection with that. One of the things that I do want to point out, because the when data is collected always comes up, is, are you familiar with the idea of significant digits? So it's the idea of, if I'm measuring in a 1/16 of an inch, but somebody else is measuring in a 1 inch increment, even though I have data to the 1/16 of an inch, only to the inch matters because that's where all the other measurements are taken. So when it comes to traffic, with the variability in traffic, while it may find the worst of the worst, it may not be your day to day. And we're trying to find that like 85th percentile of traffic where it's not your most severe, which is, let's say, an evacuation, but it's also not your, it's 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning traffic.
All right, so you picked lead in, the beginning and lead in of season, and the beginning and lead in of off season. It seems what you picked those windows as more of an average peak and a average low. Is that what you're saying?
We were trying to get different traffic patterns, is what I was trying to say. So we assumed that the seasonal resident pattern may be different than the seasonal visitor pattern. And that's what we were trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I don't know this live. So I have the same issue with the dates that you picked. I don't think they're going to give us what traffic really has looked like over the last 5 years. Just speaking for my Barrier Island, we still got a third of our hotels that are down. And so picking January 14th, we still have the effects of hurricane. And we really don't see peaks till February, March, not January right after Christmas. So I don't know if you're hearing us that I personally, we don't think that these are the right dates if you're looking to analyze congestion, at least on the island I live on.
I think there's two concerns that I hear. One is the actual date that you're analyzing traffic, and one is I don't want the date of 2025 to be analyzed, right? Because you're saying you're still affected. So whether the actual date reflects the traffic is a discussion that we can have. The concern about our hotels are still not open has been accommodated through using a projected traffic. So that traffic is not an actual count. That is a projection used off of historical counts. And that was the reason why we did it. Otherwise, we'd have to wait for full recovery to be able to do a study like this. So that's what I was explaining. If you think about, if you're looking at a stock ticker, like if you're looking at graphs, you have daily increases and decreases, right? When it opens, when it closes, you may have a dip. You're seeing that dip, but you're still going to rise. What we're trying to do is set that trend line for where it's going to rise in the projected future if those events didn't happen. They still affect the trend line.
But you're going to use you're going to go back and use historic data to look at what congestion's been like over let's say the last 5 years.
We're going to use historic data projected. You're looking at your projected growth. The model is built using historical traffic data and then looking at your growth rates and how that traffic has grown or decreased over time. It's going to be projected out to what it would be in 2025. It's trying to average, it doesn't remove, say, COVID or the hurricane impacts from the equation, but it tries to mute and average them.
Okay, I guess I'd have to see real data to know whether I agree with you or not.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I have to, being a resident on Siesta Key for the past 30 years, and being part of the Siesta Key Chamber of Commerce most of that time, I can tell you the restaurants and retail that Valentine's Day is kickoff of the season on Siesta Key and many other parts of Sarasota County. So I'd have to agree with my counterparts here is that January 20th, it's dead. I mean, the 14th, we have a holiday influx around Christmas. Then the folks leave, usually during January 14th to the 20th. And then on the 14th, like I said, they're back and they'll be with us into April. So I totally disagree with the dates. And if we're really trying to talk about congestion, we need to have the correct time of the year. So, I'll wait to see the report, but telling you right now, January 14th to 20th is not in season, not season.
So real quick, you said this was not agnostic, that FDOT gave you, so did FDOT give you these dates?
No, sir. When I was talking about FDOT was the experience that I had at the previous Barrier Island study. When we're looking at where the traffic goes, it's critical to the point that we need to have the right traffic patterns, but the difference between 100 vehicles one day and an extra and less than 100 the next doesn't make a big impact in the analysis usually. Because what you're doing is you're taking those movements that have different patterns and you're building on a set of assumptions. So when you get to the accuracy of it, it is a scientific assessment as good as we can, but it's never going to completely reflect what you see in the field that day. No traffic analysis would. It's all built on assumptions and projections. And that's what we try to do is get to where we can. The statement about the significant digits in FDOT was more of just saying that for instance, signalization, meeting the warrants for a signal. There generally won't be a significant difference unless you're right on the threshold between 1 month and the next. You're going to meet it or you won't, aside from very, very unique cases and signals, or you're on the threshold. But there's so much traffic here that a lot of what we're doing, you're going to see queue spillback, whether it's at any peak hour, you're going to start to see queue spill back. We can reevaluate the dates, but it's something we're going to have to discuss with the MPO because it would push back the date for the schedule for the study.
I mean, certainly early in the season, you're going to be seeing the flow, the effects of inflow to the area. But as far as peak daily loads, you're going to see that more in the dates that were addressed in this discussion. So I don't know. It's glaring. Having lived here as long as we all have lived here, we know when traffic's highest, and we also know when it's lowest. And I would pick August because it's brutally hot. Nobody's here. August, September, it's dead. That would be the time to do the low traffic count. So it's not to me intuitive. It looks kind of close, but somewhat arbitrary. So I'm still trying to understand, how you cued in on that. But let's let you finish with the presentation if there's no other questions.
We can have further conversations with
Yeah.
about it.
Go ahead.
So the top locations, not all of these are going to be studied. We got the top 14. Some of these, there is an issue with the data. Like for instance, the first one, Canal Road and Ocean Boulevard, is not one that we're going to study. That's a 4-way stop with a lot of on-street parking. The metrics that were used, I think, are picking up the characteristics of the traffic that are meeting a 4-way stop and are searching for parking. And you see that a couple different times. For instance, like Blackburn Point Bridge, you see it as well. Minnesota Key, it's fragmented data. So what we're doing is we're looking at those locations, verifying, like kind of gut checking it to make sure that it's right. And then the next step is getting more in-depth traffic data at that location and working through a series of potential improvements. What we're going to be keeping an eye towards is stuff that's implementable, stuff that can actually get done, and try to focus on the worst of the worst areas. And then a quick map just showing kind of globally where these locations are popping up at. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? All right. With that, we will move on to 5B, the Long Range Transportation Plan LRTP coordination.
Thank you. Good morning again. And I know for our board, we've talked about a number of these already, but I'll give you a brief update on what we're doing with regards to our long range plan update. Next one. Thank you. So a little bit more about what we did. I covered basically what we're doing with our cost feasible plan, but here's a little bit more of an update and background of what we've done to this point. Thus far, we've completed our background research, created our vision. The outcome of that is identifying formalizing our goals and objectives. We've held a workshop back in December as well as an outreach event. And our survey too is currently live. That will result in a formalization of our goals and objectives, as well as how we prioritize our projects within our long range plan. We're also looking at how we are going to develop our cost feasible plan based on these goals and objectives. As I mentioned to our board previously, there's a lot of upcoming activities related to a forum, as well as a survey and input from your local jurisdictions on what should be incorporated into our cost feasible plan. The specific dates for those will be set as soon as we've got event locations, but they will be occurring primarily in April and March of this year. If anybody cares to take our survey, we'll take any opportunities we can to get more respondents on our survey. This is our system evaluation. So basically asking you to prioritize and give feedback on project types, which are more important to you. Is it capacity? Is it trails? Is it resiliency? Is it safety? We're asking for feedback from any and all people that are interested in providing it. So there's a link there. Is also the website is www.transformtomorrow, the dash there in the middle.com. And it's got our entire update for our long range plan and information related to that. Our cost feasible plan is mentioned. We're finishing up our cost revenue. We've received feedback from all jurisdictions on their local cost revenues. We've got a pretty good idea of what the state and federal revenues look like. So we'll be wrapping that up here in January. As mentioned, we'll be meeting with your city and town and county leadership and receiving feedback on your major priorities at our town tours. In April, we'll be holding our final stakeholder workshop related to the cost feasible plan and formalization of our LRTP. And the result of that will be a formal cost feasible plan as well as a draft of unfunded needs. There's a number of things that go into our cost feasible projects and related to both our studies, DOT studies, your local priorities, as well as anything that was identified in the prior LRTP or unfunded needs. And I'll wait till after this to cover this because that's another item on here. But really for us, we're working in coordination with Lax and the Charlotte team, as well as the other members of District 1 related to the cost feasible model development. I provided the mapping for you all in our prior meeting, but really the effort here is to better understand traffic demand management and understanding where those trips will be applied to the network. We received some good comments back, and we're continuing to receive comments back on the E+C, or the existing plus committed network that allows those trips to be mapped. We're kind of there right after alternative 2. We've gotten feedback on that. We're moving towards alternative 3. The next few alternatives we'll be able to kind of formalize exactly how and what projects we want to include in the upcoming cost feasible plan. So with that, I'll hand it over to Lax and Charlotte County.
Morning, Commissioners. Lax Guram with Charlotte County Pentagon MPO. I'm going to be short and brief with that. Our vision statement is moving Charlotte forward, and our consultant for 2050 long range plan is Kim Leon and Associates. He could not be available for this meeting today. So I'm going to cover the major elements that we are focusing on for our long range transportation plan. The first is 2050 SC data development. That's where we start our projecting populations for 2050. Next is goals, objectives, and performance measures. We received a draft revenue forecast from DOT. So that is the basis for our cost feasible network. The next steps are public outreach, developing cost feasible projects, and finally the adoption October 2nd. So as indicated, our first step in doing 2050 long range plan is developing your socioeconomic data, which the MPO board, Charlotte MPO board adapted this task in December 2023. The next step was developing goals, objectives, and performance indicators. These were based upon your federal planning factors and the state emphasis areas as well. We received a draft revenues estimate. We hope to receive a revised estimates sometime sooner. The revenue estimates for the current 2050 LRTP stands around $700 million. That still leaves us some unfunded needs. If at all we get all the money that is stated there, we could finish majority of the projects. So under federal and state, one thing I wanted to mention is the trip dollars, which is for the entire District 1. That amount came out to be $9.2 million. May not be enough. As we said, we can cover that topic later in the agenda under regional trip projects. Please. So as far as the public outreach, MPO staff, with the help of the Charlotte County staff, prepared an LRTP introduction video, and we have a short survey with the QR code on our MPO website. Towards our public outreach, we have at least 10 workshops in different parts of the county. So the 3 needs public workshops are, the dates are reflected there. So those are all set as of now. The cost feasible workshops is where we try to solicit and see which projects are feasible with the funding available. The draft packet of LRTP, we are planning to take on August 4th. The final adoption is October 2nd. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 5C, which is River Road.
Great. Seems to be a topic that we bring up and discuss every year. And I think, I'd be happy to let Sarasota County provide some more updates as well. But I know we've worked closely with the department over the last several years. as well as with Sarasota County to move this priority forward. I know it's equally as important to us as it is to Charlotte and Punta Gorda MPO as well. There's been great progress on the northern segment from I-75 to US 41, currently under construction and moving forward. Also included a handout for you all as well from Sarasota County that mentions next phases. Primarily, the MPO's role is working with the department to make sure that any upcoming efforts, if made available, that the MPO is able to support those. We've identified it in our 2045 LRTP from US 41 down to Winchester as an opportunity for other roadway funds, not SU or federal discretionary funds from the MPO, but other roadway funds that may be available through the department. We've also identified this as, and you'll hear from Nina and our staff related to trails, but an important connection to Charlotte County through Sarasota County for our regional trails network. I don't want to take up too much of your time on that, but we are making great forward progress with related to River Road. And we'll continue to evaluate all opportunities for local, state, and federal funding to continue to move this priority forward.
For us, we have not too much to say on this project, but we are happy to see the dirt is flying on River Road. It's kind of a major evacuation route for residents of Inglewood that falls in Sarasota, in Charlotte County. So we're happy to see that River Road finally being constructed and finished into 4-lane. I'm also happy to see that Winchester Boulevard, North Winchester Boulevard, as a 4-laning in there in Sarasota Manatee's LRTP. That it kind of helps to our residents in Rotunda. To just give a brief synopsis of what we have done so far, the Charlotte MPO board did approve our State Road 776 corridor study back in 2021. So this corridor study identified several intersections right along the county line. One is Winchester Boulevard, Pine Street, Beach Road. This all leads to Sarasota County. So we do have both short-term and long-term recommendations for these intersections. And I believe there is a public workshop coming up sooner, sometime in second week of February, to solicit public input. That is part of the DOT's public hearing that will be conducted in the month of February. So with that, I do not have anything to say.
So 2 quick questions. One is, what is the completion date for the current 41 to 75? Because it's moving along. I mean, they keep switching traffic onto the new road, and I see progress every time I drive on it.
It's great progress. I'll refer to Wayne for the exact date of that, but I know it is intended to be in the next year or so.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay with
Yeah.
you, I'll start making a couple emails to see if I can get the exact date for that project to be completed and make a
Believe it's
report
within
back,
the next year.
hopefully this meeting.
I mean, is it in 25 or is it going to be next year?
It's on 26, but really, I think effectively completed, right? There'll be other elements that need to be tied together. but
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's still a lot of elevation and,
Yeah.
but
And our hope is that we can maintain, and I know, talk to Commissioner Nunder and everyone else about continuing moving this and progressing this further south, right? And what the MPO can do to support south of US 41. I mentioned in the model earlier, if you do take a look at that map, there is a significant, black stripe there on US 41 by River Road. And that, that means out in future years projecting, traffic delays based off of growth. So we know this is going to be a significant regional and important issue that we're going to continue to address. And, the MPO will do what we can to make sure we have resources available to move this project forward.
well, no doubt. I mean, I'm appreciative that segment 1 is on the map, and I'm just curious, the 2002 Winchester Boulevard, was that the money that Charlotte County spent in Sarasota County? Because back then we spent that may not be on here. We spent over $13 million in Sarasota County, and that's $1998. So I'd love for somebody to figure out what that's worth today, because that to us is very, very important. I mean, that's why we've supported River Road for the last decade, is because we know that's the end result of moving our people out of harm's way to get to the highway. So we really need to close that gap. And nothing you've said, makes me concerned at all. I'm just reinforcing the fact that we spent significant dollars 25 years ago, which today would probably be closer to 50 million or more. So think about how constrained we were in the late 90s to spend that kind of money to make sure that our Western County area could be connected to River Road to go north, because we saw it as such a significant ability to move folks out of there.
Yeah.
You know, and
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the county is well aware of that as well, and the MPO is too. I mean, we're looking at a, I would say in a 9-figure plus investment at this point for the county, the MPO in our local jurisdictions, and we'll continue to make that a priority. The MPO is here to assist in that, and I know the department understands, even with the state swap, the importance of this segment to make sure that it was moving people out of harm's way, and then we have better connectivity to our partners in the south. So yeah.
And I never really fully understood the gravity of this roadway when I first came into office over a decade ago. Tiger grants were being proposed for the first time, and everybody got all excited. We never got one, but we'd been working on trying to get this done for 20 years prior to that. So the fact that Sarasota County has been able to move the needle, that this MPO to our north has been able to move the needle so significantly in the last 5 years, believe you me, we all understand and we appreciate it. We're just, we don't want to, we want that momentum to continue. So thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. And we'll move on to 5D, which is regional trails.
Good morning. My name is Nina Venture, Senior Planner, Sarasota Manatee MPO staff. Like I said, I'll be working with Lax to give you an update on our regional trail activities along the Florida Gulf Coast Trail. But before I do that, because I will forget later, I want to say mark your calendars. On February 5th and February 6th, Office of Greenways and Trails, Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation, Trust for Public Land, and FDOT will be co-hosting the 2025 Florida Greenways and Trails Summit right here at the Venice Community Center. Registration closes January 31st. So you haven't registered yet. If you're interested in understanding the dynamics that go into trails planning to trails delivery, this will be a really good event for you to attend. Yes, thank you. So as we know, the Florida Gulf Coast Trail is a regional trail network that spans from Pinellas County all the way down to Collier County. Charlotte County, Sarasota, and Manatee are just a piece of that puzzle. So at least in Sarasota, Manatee, the last year has been a very exciting time for trails in the two-county area. We've seen a lot of activity in both Manatee and Sarasota counties. This is the list that I could muster. We've got about 11 projects that have some level of funding, some level of movement. A good bit of that is related to the Legacy Trail, and then we have movement onto the Gateway Greenway in Manatee County as well. This was sent out with your agenda packet, so you can look deeper into these projects on your own time. But the projects that have the black stars next to them, those are projects that the local jurisdiction submitted to the state for SunTrail funding to move those projects forward and into the next phase. And then those stars that have the blue color are projects that currently have SunTrail funding on them or will have SunTrail funding. So we have several projects in different phases, all moving into construction in the next phase. So this is a look at where all those projects are in the Sarasota and Manatee area. So a great deal of work happening north of the Manatee River through Mayaca State Park. And then we've got the overpasses heading into city of Sarasota. A good bit of work being done taking the trail east towards Nathan Benderson across I-75, which is from the northern extension of the Legacy Trail, and then also movement in South Sarasota County to bring the War Middle Springs connector into War Middle Springs, and then a lot of work happening at the local level on South River Road as well. So that's just where those projects are located. So I'll focus on just a couple of projects here. This is South River Road. South River Road will connect Welland Park, Mayaca State Forest, and Englewood. This is a project that's happening with a great deal of coordination between Trust for Public Land, Sarasota County, and the private developer. My understanding, it is a local project, and it is into the design phase. So this is good project progress. Another relevant project here is the War Middle Springs connector. The design phase is underway, and this is happening at the local level. Design phase is being funded with city park impact fees as well as Friends of the Legacy Trail donations. And the city is pursuing construction funding through SunTrail for about 3.7 million to lay that connector into Warm Mineral Springs. This is a really cool example of a really great coordination between the city, the county, the MPO, as well as grassroots community partners as well. And lastly, or semi-lastly, this is just a look at some of the projects that are kind of happening near sort of the urban core of Sarasota County, near the city of Sarasota and the Northern Legacy Trail Extension. The Legacy Trail Northern Extension is really where the trail moves from into a more urban, suburban, and urban context. So we have a great many more frequent trail crossings, and a number of these are happening on major arterial crossings. So we've got the Clark Road overpass, Bee Ridge overpass, Bahia Vista, upcoming Tuttle and Beneva are all in design. And Clark and Bee Ridge are those major arterials. So safety is an important element here. And then I also just want to mention, because we did present to this meeting last year, 3 projects that are happening: the Beneva Road to Fruitville Circus Trail Extension and 17th Street to Nathan Benderson. That is an outcome of the MPO's SunTrail alignment study that was adopted in May 2023. So it was really great to see a lot of forward movement on that completed study to get those projects moving forward into construction. And then lastly, safety is, of course, a very vital element to multimodal transportation. So we've got Beneva, Bahia Vista, and Tuttle all entering in their design phases now. State Road 72 and State Road 789 overpasses are complete. 2 weeks ago, I heard about a ribbon cutting. So if it's not complete yet, it will be very, very soon. And then, of course, we have the Laurel Road overpasses. And this is important for safe access to the trail, improving comfortability of using the trail, and making sure that we reduce conflict points. You'll also see that some of these segments, Clark, Bee Ridge, and Fruitville, are highlighted in a darker red color. These segments are on the MPO's high injury network, which brings our attention to these as being very important safety issues. And then I also wanted to point out at the State Road 780 Fruitville Road and Beneva intersection, this is a dangerous intersection. It was identified in our safety action plan a few years ago. It continues to be a dangerous intersection, and it will be a future trail crossing. And so through action brought forward through the community traffic safety team, FDOT was able to work with the city and the county to implement leading pedestrian intervals at that intersection. And that will go a great way to improving safety at that intersection. Again, this was a great deal of coordination that happened at various levels, and it is a future trail crossing, so a lot of preemptive action here to work on that. And I'll hand it over to Lax.
For us, next slide, please.
Hang on a second. We have a question.
Thank you for that presentation. I get a lot of questions about the trail and the connectivity. If you could send me a copy of your full presentation, I would appreciate it. The visuals make it easier for me to share the overall picture, so I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So majority of our SunTrail network falls on state roads. So one is on US 41 and 776. So the map that you see here shows the current existing program partially funded projects. Next slide, please. So there are totally 5 projects in Charlotte County that are funded through SunTrail. 3 are strictly SunTrail dollars, and the last 2 projects that you see on the slides are funded with multiple sources. So we are still looking for construction on State Road 776. The construction for one of the project on 776 from July to US 41 is $21 million. So we are looking all means of support project. Right now, these projects are in design. The last 2 projects are in construction and design. So those are all 5 projects that you see on the SunTrail network. What we completed so far, and kind of back to square one after Hurricane Milton. So Harbor Walk project, this has been completed in January 2019. As of October 24, after the Hurricane Milton, the Harbor Walk project has completely destroyed. So we are looking for money wherever possible, either from DOT or FEMA. We're trying to piggyback whatever funds we could be able to get to rebuild that vital connection for bike and pets right on US 41. The North Fork Alligator Creek, this project has been completed in 2020 for close to $1 million. Next slide, please. So the 3 projects that are in the funding phase are partially funded, are the one that you see on the map. We received close to $4 million for all of these projects. Some of the sections of projects 1 and 2 are still unfunded. The goal of Sunrail projects is to move the traffic away from your travel lanes to make it safer. As Nina was indicating, the goal is to make all modes of transportations to be safe. That's all I got for this. Any questions?
Any questions? My only point is, how do we make that Harbor Walk more resilient? Because, we could rebuild it tomorrow, and if a storm, just like any kind of storm surge comes, we've lost 90% of all of our docks in Charlotte County and Sarasota County. I mean, it's been a mess, man. This whole, actually, all of this MPO, both of these regions have been devastated. So, I mean, resiliency, I think, has to be built into the plan. It's not just get us money to put back what was there, but how do we make it make sense?
Kind of a lesson learned for all of us.
Yeah.
Not to build projects. So we got to come up with the different materials that can sustain the winds or the bridge erosions that we can see all the time.
If I could comment on that one project, Commissioner, I was actually the project manager for that lab project when it was built. It came back from the structural engineer that they should make it more resilient with composite decking, which is what the county did. They increased the cost. So the other suggestion to make things more resilient is to raise things up, and that's really pretty much all you can do. They did the composite decking, which doubled the price of the project, and there was no funding for it because it was funded through the lab program. And the lab program usually requires the local jurisdiction, fund any cost overruns. But at the time, LK did find the additional funding to complete the project. But it was suggested to make it more resilient, to add that composite deck.
Right. I mean, at the time, it made a lot of sense. I mean, maybe another option is to have a significant number of the sections be floatable. And then if the storm's coming, you detach them and move them someplace, I mean, that might be something to think about. But, it's sad because we, at the time, did everything suggested, and yet who in their right mind would think what happened would actually have happened. So, okay. Thank you. All right, we're on to the Joint Transportation Regional Incentive Program, Project Priority List. 5E.
Thank you. Yes, we just wanted to bring this before you today as an item that we're not voting on. We'll vote individually, but Charlotte, as well as Polk County, for the Sarasota Manatee MPO, we have a joint trip priority list, Transportation Regional Incentive Program. So projects that are regional in nature, there is a small funding source. I don't know if Wayne has a number for us this year, but it is not a significant amount of money on an annual basis. I believe last year was in the $8 million was the ballpark for the entire, same this year. So for the entire district. So while the numbers on this list might seem very high, I don't think that they're actually going to be funded entirely using trip funding. We did have some trip funding allocated into Manatee County in the last year with about $3 million from Moccasin Wallow, segment 3. So we did move the list around a little bit. Bear in mind, this is a very early draft. Charlotte County will be bringing your also to your respective board, and we'll be bringing this list to ours in March as well, and then in May for a vote. So we'll continue to work with our local jurisdiction staff to sort through. These are just the applications that we receive during our project priority process. So that's really all I have on this front. No action on this today. Just wanted to make you aware of the projects that were brought forward at this point.
Very good. Thank you.
For Charlotte County, Punta Gorda MPO, our our number one regional project is always Harbor View Road. We've been looking to fund that project for a while. As Ryan was saying, the TRIP dollars are not much, close to $9 million for entire District 1. Anything that could help to subsidize the local funds would be a benefit and win for us. So as
Thank
you. The status quo remains. So Harbor View Road will be our number one project and will be on the top of our list. So that only thing to add.
Question?
Oh, one more thing. I've been asked to share that the wreck at mile marker 203 has been cleared thanks to information from Wayne. It was about a 5-hour cleanup, and a gravel truck and 2 vehicles were involved. And after about 5 hours and 30 minutes, it's been cleared. So the interstate is back open. So
Good
hopefully
news.
your travel will be a little easier.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, the board also asked for an update on the potential finishing for River Road. We're looking at the early months of calendar year 2027 for the completion of that project.
27.
Yes, early calendar year. So it could very well be before that. But we're anticipating the date that we're utilizing for the public is early 2027.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you know.
We were programming that out to be a later, late 2026 timeframe. As we obviously move forward on the project, we're ironing things out and making sure that we've got some.
I mean, it's a massive undertaking, and, you know, I'm not smart enough to know or experienced enough to know all the stuff on a punch list, and there's just so many, because you have to build the plane while you're flying it. So I know it's very difficult to keep the road open and keep doing the construction. So okay, we are down to board member comments. We'll start with Councilman Member Coker. Anything?
Oh, Commissioner Constance.
Yes, sir.
We had an agenda item E, Joint Transportation Regional the proposed interchange. I think we skipped over it. Number 3.
Did I?
Proposed new I-75 interchange to White.
You're right. We did. And actually, it's funny because I was looking through the notes here and I said, we never talked about this, but okay, yeah, let's go back to that, please. Item 5B3, the proposed new I-75 interchange at Yorkshire Raintree.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
prerequisite projects.
We can briefly mention, I know, and Flax wants to add anything as well. I'm sure you can. But in terms of the interchange at Yorkshire Raintree, I know the MPO took an undertaking a couple of years back related to white paper that explained, you know, what was needed, what was expected of our locals, as well as what can be done at the state level with regards to a new interchange at Yorkshire Raintree. There was a number of things mainly related to the development and build out of either of the existing network that can support that interchange, as well as any kind of development that would generate enough average annual daily traffic to make and warrant an interchange at that location. That will continue to be evaluated. We've been told in the past, and I'm sure that stays the same, that an IJR or anything like that is probably not in the best interest until we've completed a number of improvements to the surrounding transportation network. We don't want to waste our time and get put on a list that says we evaluated it and we won't come back for another 10 years and look at it again. So we want to make sure we're investing. And we've had discussions with Charlotte County about, you know, creating better connections. Hillsborough is one of those conversations, as well as 41, and how do we match our network for something at a level of investment of a new interchange, you know, in the scope of, you know, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. So we have to make sure before we make those recommendations that we've got the necessary warrants and thresholds to meet that kind of demand. So that's really all I've got on that right now, and certainly working with the county and the city of Northport on those local improvements will be important over the next several years.
Okay, very good.
So since the white paper has been adapted by the heard by these 2 joint boards, MPO staff did a Veterans Boulevard corridor study with the help of DOT. We identified several intersections that lead to this interchange. Most of these projects are in our project priorities. On the top of that, Charlotte County is looking into making improvements on Veterans Boulevard for making it more safer and easy to travel on these intersections. A couple of these intersections have been brought up at the meeting before, One is Yorkshire. Yorkshire has been identified as an potential connection in the white paper. The long-term goal for that intersection has been either to widen, the lanes. Lane modifications are around about that intersection. We're also looking at Harbor Boulevard. Charlotte County did have enough right of way in case in the future if we need to have the possible connection to Yorkshire interchange in the future. So we are coordinating with our regional Sarasota Manatee as far as getting the projects in our alternative 3 to see if that even feasible to pick some momentum. So we are working on it, and there are a few more projects that we are trying to get into other alternates of our District 1 regional model. We hope to get those projects and see where we are as we move forward.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lax, I guess what I'm hearing though is that there's a need for a better understanding of the development around these future interchanges within the city of Northport. I mean, what will growth look like before, am I catching that correctly?
I'll explain it, Lex. So really, the engineers and project managers for FDOT, they've been pretty consistent, saying that we need to shore up those regional roadway connections that would funnel towards the new proposed interchange. So they're saying that continue progressing with your roadway improvements within your local jurisdictions, and ramp those numbers up to what would make the time for an IJR right. We don't want to do the IJR, the intersection justification report for federal highway too early, because that would sit on the shelf and go stale. So what FDOT is telling us to shore up those roadway connections, and albeit from a catalyst like a large box store or a large traffic generator out that way, the time wouldn't be right to do the IJR for at least another 10 to 15 years. So that's what they're saying.
Well, as a person who goes through the Kings Highway, I-75, exit 170 twice a day, it's a mess. Okay. And maybe that's what we really need to look at. If there's ways though, of not only looking at the development up at those proposed interchanges from the standpoint of growth in the city of Northport, as to how do we change our network to possibly funnel up Yorkshire and other to create the traffic from Charlotte County that would justify it. That's maybe something that hasn't been looked at or thought about.
And that's exactly the idea, right? It has to be, the generation of traffic has to meet thresholds, right? Right now, we're looking at thousands of trips. It needs to be in tens of thousands of trips to generate. So yes, looking at connections to Charlotte County would potentially pull people off of Kings Highway and utilize that. Yes, that's.
I guess what I'm saying, not just the city of Northport generation, but what we can channel up to those interchanges from Charlotte County would be logical.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, an F rating definitely helps, right? An F rating definitely helps in that location, right? Yes.
Yes, just as a quick update, this city of Northport has just rewritten its its land use development, and has rezoned the area with expanded Activity Center 6 out in the Yorkshire area, and have created a 10th activity center that is adjacent. And we are funding this year a master planning effort for that area. I've also started talking with staff. We've been thinking about infrastructure improvements working from Toledo Blade East. I think we should talk about extending utilities from Charlotte County West as a way of accelerating some of those infrastructure improvements that the MPO is looking at. So I know our respective staffs are beginning to put together an agenda for a joint meeting between the city and Charlotte County. And I'd really like to have on that agenda some out-of-the-box thinking of
how we accelerate infrastructure improvements in that area working together. The fact that the city still cannot borrow money does sort of put a kibosh on our ability to be proactive in these kinds of situations. But I think if we work together, we might be able to accelerate satisfying some of the requirements in that white paper that the MPO is looking at from a local investment point of view. So perhaps we can follow up with each other at the meeting and help make that.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
we funded a water line all along Hillsborough, so that's going to be going in.
I
So,
take Hillsborough every single day, so I'm intimately acquainted
okay,
with
good.
that
Good to know
project.
that. Commissioner Tiseo?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
So you stole my thunder, Mr. Chair. I was going to talk about that water line on Hillsborough. Sorry for the inconvenience. We're trying to get that done as quickly as we can.
Happy to have it.
It'll be a great net benefit though
It
for
will.
everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Doherty, your point about Kings Highway, when we first talked about doing this new interchange, for me, that was the impetus to get this thing rolling, was because of what's going on at exit 170. I believe it is failing, correct?
Like 2015.
Right. Okay. So it's failing, and what are we going to do about it? This seemed like the next best thing to do is create another interchange. And in terms of Veterans Boulevard, needing to do some of those improvements in advance of moving the project forward, I guess at the federal level, so it doesn't sit on the shelf, so to speak, and get stale, is what I heard. We're doing it in phases. So in Charlotte County, we approve certain improvements to be done, such as right turn lanes, and I think some median work. But the study we did jointly with FDOT also included some signalization. And because of budget constraints, we're doing this in pieces. So what would be the projected timeline, Dewan, and maybe you can refresh my memory, on the improvements we're doing now? And then when would all the improvements be done on veterans that would allow us to move forward with this interchange project?
The timing for the veterans projects, those would be contingent upon funding. As Lex indicated, we're slowly but surely making a little bit of dent on some of those projects that were identified in the Veterans Corridor Study. However, the timing and everything will be contingent upon actually what's needed for some of those improvements. I know there are a lot of intersection improvements, but each project could take, 2 to 4 years, depending on which phase needs to be done. So, but as far as the numbers, when we'll be to that point where we're actually at a point where it's good to do the IGR, we think we have those threshold numbers. That would be hard for me to predict. I'm not a modeling expert. That would be more Lex and Ryan. But I'm thinking 10 to 15 years.
Yeah,
So.
because to do all the recommendations included in that joint corridor study, it's probably a decade or longer before we get those.
Right.
At least, yes.
At least.
Yeah, well, it is a long-term project. You talk about 2050. Yeah, it's going to be every bit of that.
However, the discussions we're having now, these are key discussions because we're talking about infrastructure, utilities. Those things are all ideal for spurring, development, economic development, especially out near the interstate. I mean, if developers are listening now, I bet you their ears are perking up a little bit. So I'll end there.
In response to Mrs. Langdon, I used to ride my bike years ago back in the 90s down Price Boulevard. Now I wouldn't get caught on that road on a bicycle. Yeah, I would be caught dead on that road. There used to be nobody out there, and Price and Toledo Blade was a stop sign. And this is going back again to the 90s. And I believe you've targeted that corridor as one of your main corridors now, that you're looking to 4-lane, but I think there's some funding.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Yes, in fact, we're looking at the widening of Price in phases. Phase 1 is happening currently. Phase 2 has been considered from Sumter out to River Road, and I'm saying, no. It needs to be Toledo to Yorkshire in terms of priority. So again, it's that infrastructure issue. And I'm really thinking we need to start, and this is for my city also, rather than thinking of developing infrastructure from Toledo out, let's do it from Kings Highway west and see if we can accelerate some of these investments. Because it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
So I live off of Veterans near the Kings Highway exit. I actually get on Price Boulevard, right off of Veterans, and that's how I go to Toledo Blade. Because I do some things in the city, and also to get on the interstate if I'm going in that direction.
Right.
I use that. It's a huge road that I think.
And I use Kings Highway when I'm going south. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I mean, not to belabor this, but I think it was like 8 years ago that I introduced this at this very meeting, and I think Al Mayo was the chairman. And I basically was very blunt about it. I said, we need a new interchange at Veterans, but it doesn't make sense. So if the city of Northport and the county of Sarasota and this MPO to the north of us is interested, we will support you for Yorkshire or Raintree because that makes a lot more sense.
Right.
But let's not let it get lost. That was the reason we started, not because we were anticipating development in Northport. We have an F and we have a problem. And it doesn't, we're trying to be good stewards and plan appropriately and give this to our neighbors to the north. But we're the ones driving this to begin with because we have such an excruciating problem where we are. I mean, so, and then we were at least I was very excited, I think 3 or 4 years ago when this was brought up at, again, this joint meeting up in Manatee County, I think it was hosted up there. And everybody was excited because there's a lot of commercial infrastructure and trucking that could go up to Port Manatee through this particular interchange coming off of Arcadia, coming off the eastern part of the state and coming through. It's a much better way to run it. So we're working on that roadway structure from wherever this is off 75 across south of the Water Authority to Kings Highway to bypass all of that mess at exit 170. So again, really good coordination regionally to make sure that this happens and it's on the record, just for you. Yes, Commissioner Doherty.
One final comment, Mr. Chairman. Wayne, I happen to sit on the National Association of Counties Transportation Steering Committee. We'll be in Washington, D.C. March 1st through the 4th.
Yes.
I would love to get a name while I'm in town up there, name of someone at the federal level, DOT up there, and talk to them about this process. If it's appropriate. I don't want to screw anything up either. I mean, sometimes I've gotten involved. I don't plan on talking to the legislative people about this, the congresspeople. I just want to talk to the agency and find out what the process is and why we have to wait so long. It's just unacceptable. But I'd appreciate getting a name. Appreciate
I'd
it.
make the recommendation, Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'd make the recommendation, we start that conversation at the district level and then we'll move up.
I can't.
So we'll start this conversation at the district level with our folks, and then we'll start to move that up to understand the overall process from the grassroots moving up. I'll be more than happy to give you my business card before you leave, and I can schedule that meeting for a quick discussion. Then we can sit down there and have kind of iron everything out quickly.
Well, that's where I need the clarification. Is it FDOT that decides this, or is it the federal people?
It's FHWA, that's their roadway, and we are charged with being responsible for maintaining it.
I just want to talk to somebody who's the ultimate decision maker, the federal people. I'd like to coordinate with you guys. Don't misunderstand me, but I'm up there. I might as well take advantage of it.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Commissioner, I would just make sure we get with our staff because when we go on these legislative visits, we read off the script. It has to be approved by the board of DC. Yeah, even when we go to DC, yeah. If we're making a legislative trip up there, we need to get the specific language added to our agenda so we all understand what we're talking about, so we don't cross wires up there. That we only comment on that, but I don't disagree. Bending an ear of an agency, if it's at the appropriate time, is certainly on the table.
We have the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. 100% agree. I think the more touches we have, again, the squeaky wheel gets the federal dollars. That's the bottom line. Okay. Any other comments or All right, so we're done with that item. We're gonna move on to comments and we'll go back again to Councilmember Coker from Bradenton. Anything?
Just wishing everybody safe travels, and I'll defer any comments to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Move on to Vice Mayor Emmerich from Northport.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Polk from City of Punta Gorda.
Yes, I'd like to say, I didn't hear too much about Harborview Road, and I'm very concerned because I have an 84-year-old mother-in-law who lives off that street, and I lived there for 20 years. And so many truckers coming down that way, 18-wheelers, huge, fuel tankers. It's mostly residential down that street. So I don't understand why they're using Harborview Road. It is 45 miles an hour. Maybe lower it to 35, I don't know, or stop those truckers from coming down that way. They have no business driving on that. People are riding their bikes. Like I said, it's residential. People are walking on that street, on that road. And it's probably one of the worst connectors between I-75 and 41. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna probably weigh in on that and agree with you because since this project has really crawled, I'm gonna bring that up tomorrow at our county meeting and discuss with the other commissioners about what the options are. I don't know about lowering the speed limit. I guess that is an option. If we're not going to be doing anything substantial to that roadway before it's completely reconstructed to 4-lane, maybe truck traffic is going to destroy that road before, it's time. And maybe that's something we need to consider is not having that truck traffic if that's an option. So I think that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. Mayor West from City of Palmetto.
Nothing to add at this time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ahern Koch from City of Sarasota.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for your comments about sustainability and building back in a way that is resilient when we have to do that, because we do have to do a lot of it. So it's a really important thing to consider.
It's amazing when you get spanked by Mother Nature, how it changes your whole outlook on things. Vice Chair Mayor Brown from City of Bradenton.
Thank you. And I'll just be short. I just think that these meetings are good, even though some of the stuff we talked about may not have as much to do with us to the north or you to the south. But when we get together, we do learn and see why one thing will be more important to us and compared to you. But it's all the same traffic.
We're the same region and we need to know what's going on to the north, just as you knew to the south, because we're all interconnected and we all have the same hopes and dreams for our citizens. It's great to be at the table. And it's crazy. We have to have this ability to talk regionally and go outside our county to meet. It's really important. Thank you for that. I'm going to skip the chair for the end. Commissioner Sale.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to all the new MPO board members. If you haven't gotten your dictionary on acronyms from staff, go ahead and get it because they'll blow your minds. It's like a different language. I remember when I first got on this board, it was mind blowing. Also, I think, Commissioner Constance, when you're talking about the $13 million Charlotte County investment into Sarasota County, I think I heard Commissioner Newander just say thank you. I think that's about all you're going to get for your crying about the $13 million is a thank you.
People need to know.
That's right. That's right. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Haycock from Longboat Key.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed serving on the board the last 5 years, and this is the only time I see some of you, so I'll miss seeing your friendly faces. And we don't ask for much on Longboat Key, but when we do, we really need it. And we've got a couple projects that have been funded, and then we have 3 or 4 that we're hoping to get funded in the next 5 years or so. So don't forget about us.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Doherty from Charlotte County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be back on the MPO. Appreciate the meeting. Good meeting. Look forward to working with everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Commissioner Langdon from Northport.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I really value these meetings to get together with my Charlotte County brethren. After all, we do share the same grandparents for good and for ill. So I often think that the city of Northport has more in common with Charlotte County than we do with some of our more northern Sarasota County cousins. So I really value this opportunity to work with you
Well,
guys.
That's fighting words.
Might want to join us.
Well, just time and population have caused us, and with the roadway infrastructure, to grow. You're part of our urban service area when you look at the maps. So we absolutely have to collaborate on this kind of stuff. And this interchange project is sort of an absolute highlight for why that has to be going in that direction. So I appreciate that. Commissioner Bearden from Manatee.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you, sir. And Mayor Alpert from Sarasota.
Nothing at this time too.
Very good. Commissioner Yeander?
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Co-chair, thank you.
Thank you. Briefly, great meeting. It's always fun to get together with regional partners in this part of, I call this our, the coastal community, right? We all know that Florida is a destination of anywhere between 1,000 to 1,300 people a day moving into the Sunshine State. So I do find these get-togethers and these conversations meaningful, and certainly hearing perspective around the community and the area of our state is valuable, at least to me. And knowing that, we have a Northport defector down there is also very meaningful.
Joe, you know I love you.
I'm just kidding. But I certainly appreciate the opportunity. And yes, thank you for, I didn't know the history of River Road and those inner workings and those relationships that happen and predate certainly my existence here, but yours, it is meaningful. And yes, thank you for that. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just real brief, talking about this, we haven't really met since the two major storms in October, and I just wanted to give everybody kind of a super brief update. I'm also a physician when I'm not a commissioner, and the storms were so bad that it permanently closed the hospital in Punta Gorda. That hospital is 3 feet above flood. It got flooded in Helene and even worse in Milton. And, so that's the storm cloud that hit. So we are down an entire hospital. In Sarasota, you benefit from a 5-star A-rated healthcare system. So be proud of that and understand that's probably driving as much of your retirement to this area as the Sunshine is. Just think about that. Because if you're older, you want to live someplace where it's wonderful to live, but if you need medical care, you want a top-rated health system. You have that in Sarasota County. So the silver lining is Advent Health bought the other hospital in Port Charlotte, and they own the property in Punta Gorda, but I don't think they're going to rebuild the hospital. So it remains to be seen, but I just think it's so important that we have transportation infrastructure, we have water and sewer and all that good stuff to provide for folks, but healthcare is the other piece of that sort of triangle, and it's something that we have to promote down here because we're all retiring in place. I mean, that's what we came down to Paradise to be here, but having good roadways, adds to all of that. So I appreciate your time and for staying for the meeting, and we tried to keep it efficient. And if there's nothing further, we are adjourned. Thank you.